Han Sen was interested in those paintings. He kept looking at them, fascinated by the depiction of rebate being slaves. But in the paintings, Han Sen could not see what beings had enslaved them. The carriage and the slave masters that it held were all enveloped in bright light. So much so, you could not identify the beings inside it. You, open the door. Captain Wood pointed at one of the barons as he spoke.
I'm sorry.
That baron suddenly kneeled, planted his face down to the ground, and started to kowtow. He did it so vigorously, his forehead began to bleed. Catcha! Captain Wood cut the baron's head clean off, and emotionlessly spoke to another one of the barons. Now you go and open the door. The baron's legs were shaking. He didn't beg as the previous baron had. Instead, he slowly approached the door of the palace. His trembling legs brought him closer and closer to the door, and when he was near enough, he extended his shaky hands. With little to no strength, he pushed against it. The door did not budge. Use strength, Captain Wood shouted. The baron shoved forcefully against the door, but still, there was no response. Deep Blue Viscount, how did Chiron Earl enter? Captain Wood asked Deep Blue Viscount. Deep Blue Viscount, ever since he had returned to this place, had looked quite pale. His lips shivered as he tried to speak, saying, he merely pushed the door and it opened. He did nothing special. He didn't do anything. Come on, man. Think about it harder, Captain Wood quietly requested. Deep Blue Viscount's entire body was shaking like mad. His facial expression screamed out the fact he was hiding something. And inside, whenever he thought about it, he wanted to faint and drop down to the ground. I guess I do know what happened, Gu Qingqing said with a sigh. She used the voice only Han Sen and Xie Qingqing could pick up.
Han Sen did.
He knew what she was thinking, too, but it was simply too cruel. What's going on? Xie Qingqing was too lazy to think about it, so he quietly asked them to spell it out. Gu Qingqing said, if I am not mistaken, Chiron Earl brought more than just Deep Blue Viscount. There might have been 6 ordinary rebate. Xie Qingqing did not want to realize what she was suggesting, but he was a smart man. He understood and said, are you saying Chiron Earl brought the ordinary rebate intentionally for some reason? Their only use could have been in opening this door. Does that mean Deep Blue Viscount is some sort of key or sacrifice? That must be the reason it, Gu Qingqing said coldly. Gu Qingqing knew this, but Captain Wood was not dumb, either. He stared at Deep Blue Viscount and said, if you tell me the truth, I will let you live. If you lie, you are going to be a sacrifice. Deep Blue Viscount's body shook even more now. With a trembling voice, he said, we need the blood of 4 rebate to open this door. When Deep Blue Viscount said that, the rebate barons were shocked. They immediately tried to run. Aside from them, only Captain Wood and Black Steel were rebate. Everyone knew what would happen to them now. Captain Wood didn't look at the rebate barons that were escaping, though, for of the marquis did so for him. They swiftly moved to grab the escaping barons. Then, all 4 of the captured rebate were thrown in front of the palace door. How do we do this? Captain Wood saw Deep Blue Viscount shaking like mad. Deep Blue Viscount, with his still shaky voice, said, make them kneel in front of the gate, and then cut off their heads. Their blood should be absorbed by the gate. Mr. Help. F***CK. I am going to fight you. The 4 rebate begged for their lives. Others were mad. Some of them wished to kill themselves. But no matter what they wished to do, they could not move. Captain Wood unleashed a power before any of them could move their fingers. They were kneeling before the door now. Don't kill me. I am Night River King's man, a rebate baron shouted. When he shouted that out, the other 3 barons started shouting, too. They were all well known, at some level. Captain Wood ignored their pleas, though. He grabbed the scared Deep Blue Viscount and brought him in front of the door. He made him kneel with the 4 barons. Captain Wood, what is this? I told you what you wanted to know. Deep Blue Viscount was terrified. There are 4 rebate barons, and you said you need 4. Isn't that quite a coincidence? Captain Wood said coldly. Mister, I did not lie. You really only need 4. Deep Blue Viscount shouted. Captain Wood looked up to the painting on the wall and said, kill. The 4 marquis moved to cut the heads of the rebate off. 5 in total, with Deep Blue Viscount included. Han Sen and Gu Qingqing frowned. This was just like the sanctuary. If you were weak, you would only end up getting bullied. Deep Blue Viscount and the others were all killed. Then, Captain Wood withdrew his power. The 5 headless bodies were still in a kneeling position as the necks squirted out blood that spray-painted the door. The blood began to float up and stain the markings across the door before being wholly absorbed. The 5 headless corpses continued to squirt blood ceaselessly. It was a creepy thing to see. The barons had killed before, but seeing this, it made their legs grow soft. Catcha! The 5 bodies shriveled up as all their blood was drawn into the door. The bronze door turned red, and then it made a sound. It was just a sound, though. The door did not open. The 5 bodies were all dried up now, lying on the ground. They were like husks, devoid of any fluid. You, go and open the door. Captain Wood pointed at one of the barons. The baron was so scared that he wet his pants. But even so, he still walked toward the door, shivering constantly. He pushed the red bronze door open. The bronze door opened, and light spilled out of the gap. When the group saw what lay inside there, they were quite surprised. Inside, there was a small replica of Narrow Moon. Each moon had its own orbital ring, and in the center of them all, there was an orb. Like a sun, it gleamed brightly. That was at the center of the purple bronze palace. Han Sen was shocked. Other than the strange solar system within, the purple bronze palace was empty. Countless moons orbited a sun, and they looked like they had been there for a long time. The baron that opened the door stood where he was, as Captain Wood excitedly moved forward to push him out of the way. He walked forward, and the 4 marquis followed. Han Sen thought it was strange that they suddenly seemed braver. They hadn't sent their cannon fodder in first in case there were traps. It didn't seem like a very Wood thing to do. And as this strange feeling continued to permeate Han Sen's temperament, Captain Wood kneeled in the air like a knight. As he faced the sun, he said, "Lord Sky God, greetings from your most loyal rebate slave." Han Sen felt his eyeballs bulge in their sockets, and it seemed like everyone else was equally surprised. He thought there was going to be a fight, with the situation changing so suddenly. It looks like the god that the rebate obey is the sun. It is no wonder it looks like that, Gu Qingqing said quietly. Han Sen understood what she was saying. No wonder the rebate didn't have accounts of their victory over the ravens. It did not look as if they had beaten them at all. If the rebate had won the war, even if the enemy had been weak and pitiable, they still could have claimed that it was a heroic and noble victory. There was only one possible reason for the rebate to avoid talking about their victory over the raven. They hadn't actually won. Something must have happened to the raven, providing the rebate a fortunate opportunity to steal Narrow Moon for themselves. Whether or not the raven had completely disappeared was something they were not sure of. You guys still remember me? What do you want, providing sacrifices like that? The sun-like orb possessed an old voice. Lord Sky God, I. Captain Wood looked hesitant to say it, and his face twisted a little in the attempt to speak. Captain Wood had come here on Black Moon King's orders. The wish he had to make was something Black Moon King desired, but right now, another thought crept across his mind. His mind was in 2 halves, and his face looked strange. After a while of thought, he said, Lord Sky God, we require a fire seed. The sun-like orb said, you should know that a sacrifice like that is not enough for a fire seed. You will require more. When Han Sen and the others heard this, they tensed. If Captain Wood required live sacrifices, they would be in danger. But things were not as Han Sen feared. Captain Wood brought out a box. He held it up to the Sky God and said, Sky God, this is my sacrifice. The box in Captain Wood's hand started to fly. It went past a moon right towards the sun. After some time passed, Sun Sky God said, Good. This is enough. You can be granted a fire seed. After that, the sun released a small fire. It was like the light of a candle, and it flew directly back to Captain Wood. Captain Wood pulled out a black bottle to put the flame inside. He closed it, and then put it away. Thank you, Sky God. Captain Wood bowed, and then went on to ask, Sky God, is there still one more wish available to be made?
No.
The 3 wishes have been granted. Sun Sky God used his old voice. Did Chiron Earl make 2 wishes? Where did he get that many sacrifices? Captain Wood's face changed. Sun Sky God said, Chiron Earl only made one wish. Not long ago, a Viscount approached and made a wish. So, the 3 wishes have now been made. Captain Wood's face looked ill, and he said, A Viscount made a wish? Who? You can return to whence you came now. Sun Sky God did not answer his question. Captain Wood did not dare disobey the command, so he simply bowed and left the purple bronze palace with his 4 marquees. He looked quite gloomy. Now Han Sen wondered if Wind Viscount was the one who made the wish. It didn't make sense if he had, though. If he had made a sacrifice and gone through all that effort, why would he have died not long after? After Captain Wood had left the hall, Sun Sky God's voice boomed across the hall. If you have the raven feather, why do you not make a wish? Everyone was shocked, and no one knew who his question was directed at. Han Sen was shocked, and he thought to himself, the raven feather cannot be that steel feather, can it? If you have the raven feather, you can make one more wish. Sun Sky God's voice sounded again. Everyone looked at each other, wondering who amongst them might have had such a feather. Han Sen stayed quiet, but when he stepped forward, he noticed Captain Wood and the others' faces change. Mr. Sky God, what are these raven markings? Han Sen did not make a wish. He simply asked a question before all else. Sun Sky God answered, Chiron Earl made a wish to grow a raven. You need a sacrifice to grow the raven, and the people with the marks on them are the sacrifices. Then, might I ask how it is possible to erase those raven marks? Han Sen asked. Sun Sky God seemed to show bias towards Han Sen, and he answered him again. You do not need to erase them. When the raven is born, the marks will fade. The marks will not bring harm to the people possessing them. In fact, those who have it will be granted raven blood. It will make them stronger. Now, Han Sen was able to understand why Sky God was so nice and so willing to answer the questions. But Han Sen had to keep on asking. Then, how do I make the raven be born in a way that the sacrifices don't die? You find more sacrifices. Find more than you need, and you will live, Sun Sky God said with certainty. Is there anything else? Is there a method that won't require any sacrifices? Han Sen asked with a frown. You can use your wish to erase those marks, of course. You ask too many questions. Now, sacrifice the raven feather and make your wish, Sun Sky God said. Han Sen did not like making wishes. He knew what had happened to Dawn, Uncle Bug, and the Ning family's second mister, and it had completely soured him on the concept of making wishes. Han Sen did not think Sky God was a good character. Chiron Earl had made a wish, but he was killed alongside the rest of his helpers. He did not know if Wind Viscount had made a wish, but he had died too. And on top of that, he had infected the rest of Han Sen's people back at base with the sacrificial marking. Han Sen did not say anything, and there were only 2 wishes he could realistically make. One wish was to ask Sky God to erase everyone's markings, but that was something that Sky God was suspiciously leading him to request. If he wasn't leading Han Sen on, he wouldn't have mentioned the possibility in the first place. Han Sen did not think he was any more important than Wood Duke, but Sky God had spoken a lot more to Han Sen, and so it was fairly obvious that Sky God wanted something from him. Han Sen couldn't make this wish. Even if everyone did get their markings removed, the egg was still around. The infection, in some way, would go on. And on top of that, Han Sen only had 1 raven feather. He could also wish for the raven to be born without the need for a sacrifice. According to what Sky God had told him, if the raven was born, the markings would be useless. The people with them would not be hurt, and if anything, those who had been marked would only benefit. But Han Sen couldn't be sure this was the truth just because Sky God had said so. It might just be another way that Sky God was trying to deceive him. If this was the truth, there was the whole matter of pondering what to do once the raven was born. It required a grand sacrifice for its birth, so only the gods knew how much it would later require as it grew up. At least it wouldn't have the ability to kill, presumably, but that couldn't be known until it was born. It could actually be scarier once it was born than when it was in the egg. Wishes like that seemed too dangerous to Han Senator, but the Silver Fox, Xie Qing King, and Gu Qingqing possessed the mark. If he didn't sort this out soon, everyone here could die. Make your wish. Sun Sky God's voice boomed again, echoing across the hall. Han Sen did not bring out the steel feather yet, though. He just asked, Lord Sky God, is there anyone else like you that can grant a wish through sacrifices? This has nothing to do with your wish, Sun Sky God said. It has nothing to do with my wish, but I had a few friends who made a wish to a so-called god. Their dreams might have come true, but ultimately, their lives all turned to misery. I am afraid of ending up like them. I don't want to make a wish and find myself unable to enjoy it, Han Sen said slowly. I am not that kind of god, Sun Sky God said. So, you are saying there are other gods like you? Han Sen's eyes turned bright. He had been looking for that god for a long time, but he had never been able to pick up on a single lead. He hadn't expected to find one here. You cannot compare those fake gods to someone like me, Sun Sky God said in irritation. Now Han Sen knew that other gods did exist. And now Han Sen wanted to know information concerning the gods Sky God knew, and whether one of them was the god that the 7th team had encountered. Han Sen wished to ask something more, but Sun Sky God said, I am going to rest. Give me your feather and make the wish now, or wait another 1,000 years. I appreciate the offer. I'll think about it, and maybe I'll make this wish in 1,000 years, Han Sen said, then tried to exit the Purple Bronze Palace. When he had entered the palace, he stayed near the door. He didn't enter too far, so he thought he could bolt outside quickly enough if something bad happened. But now Han Sen noticed he had underestimated Sky God. As he tried to reach the door suddenly looked so far away. He wouldn't be able to reach it. You are a little creature no greater than an ant. Where do you think you are? You cannot come and go so simply. Make your wish with your feather, or I will send you to hell. You will suffer for the rest of eternity. Mark my words. Sun Sky God sounded a little peeved. I told you I have no wish to make, Han Sen responded. Then think about it, right here, right now. Sun Sky God coldly went on to say, but hurry. You might end up dying before you are able to make a wish. Han Sen frowned, not understanding what Sky God meant. But soon, he did. Han Sen's fingers and hair grew quickly. He began growing a long beard, as something else occurred to his skin. Time has sped up. Han Sen's face changed. Wood Duke and all the others were shocked. Controlling time really was something only a god could do. Han Sen looked at his body. With the speed he was aging, his few hundred-year lifespan would be over in a few hours. I am Sky God. I can do anything, if it is what I desire. Sky God sounded cold. It didn't look as if he was showing off, though. This was something ordinary for him. In that case, why don't you just take the feather? Why do I have to make a sacrifice? Han Sen's body was getting older, but he wasn't panicking yet. Han Sen had the powers of space and time himself. Although he wasn't as strong as Sky God couldn't bluff him. When Han Sen spoke, Sky God went quiet and did not say anything more. Han Sen's body kept getting older. His hair had reached his feet, and the beard had reached the ground. He wanted to leave the hall, more than anything. But even at full speed, he couldn't reach the door. It was always one step away from him. Old Han, I am coming. Xie Qing King shouted, wishing to barge into the hall. He did not care if there was a god inside or not. Gu Qingsheng pulled out her sword named Pure. She readied herself to help Xie Qing King and Han Sen. Don't come in. I know what to do. Han Sen's shout prevented Xie Qing King from coming in. Xie Qing King stopped just short of the entrance and spoke aloud to Han Sr. Do you really have a way? If you don't, I'll pull you out of there. Don't worry. I have a way, Han Sen said calmly. Han Sen, give him your sacrifice and make the wish. Do you want to die? Captain Wood said, with a frown. He is your god, Rebate. He is not the god of the crystallizers. Who said I absolutely must make a wish with him? Han Sen mocked the scenario. It looks like you really don't want to live. Captain Wood looked rather gloomy. It didn't matter to him if Han Sen wanted to live or die, but he was on planet Eclipse. If Han Sen randomly died there, under his supervision, he couldn't rightly explain to Queen what had transpired. Sky God, I am not making a wish, and I will not hand over the feather. Even if you kill me or torture me, you won't obtain it. So, come on. Give me what you've got, Han Sen said, then continued walking toward the door. Sun Sky God did not say a word. Han Sen's body was growing old very quickly, though. His face had wrinkled, and his hair had gone white. Even if you do not want to use the raven feather to save your people, aren't you interested in something for yourself? How about immortality? If you make a wish, you can live forever. Or you can become the king of some land, if you so choose. I can grant you anything you want, right here, right now. Sun Sky God finally broke his silence. Han Sen did not respond. He continued walking away. He couldn't leave, so he just kept on going. Has someone you love died? If you make a wish, I can bring them back for you. Sun Sky God offered more, seeing Han Sen's continued disinterest. Han Sen didn't say anything to him, though. He just kept on going, as if he hadn't heard a thing. If you want to become Narrow Moon's absolute master, you only have to ask that of me. Sun Sky God's offerings were becoming grander as time went on. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before Han Sen found himself in the seat of the creator. Han Sen remained unfazed and uncaring. He kept on walking. He walked in the direction of the door that could never be reached. Not long after, Han Sen's hair had all turned white. His face was covered in wrinkles. He was like a dying old man. He was really old at this point. Little Silver, who had been sitting on Han Sen's shoulder the whole time, was old, too. His silver hair had turned white, and it looked as if he was going to die of old age. What? Are you not going to help him? A marquise mocked. Xie Qingking said coldly. He said he has a way out of there. The marquise lifted his top lip, thinking Xie Qingking was merely too scared to go to Han Sen's aid. The others thought the same, as well. They could see him standing on the precipice, only watching Han Sen and refusing to step inside. Suddenly, the purple bronze door shut, and then you could not see what was beyond there. This also meant Han Sen was now hidden from sight. It looks like Sky God is angry. Han Sen is most likely dead now. We should go, Master. Captain Wood was speaking to Black Steel. Black Steel frowned and looked at the solemn door that had closed. He said, "Okay, let's leave." "What are you two doing there? Why are you not leaving?" a marquise asked Xie Qingking and Gu Qingqing. "We are waiting for Han Sen," Xie Qingking coldly said. "Earlier, you two were afraid to step inside. Stop pretending about this nonsense." The marquise lifted his lip. "Let them stay," Black Steel said. Then, he signaled for the rest of the team to depart. Then, he murmured to Xie Qingking, "Tell Han Sen that I'm sorry. I will leave much of the lotus in the base." "Okay." Xie Qingking affirmed he would. When Captain Wood took the others to the place's exit, Xie Qingking spoke again. He said, "Is Han Sen really going to be fine? I thought you were confident he would be." Gu Qingqing looked at the door before them and spoke carelessly. "I am, but that Sky God is a dodgy fellow. I am afraid Han Sen will walk out as an old man." Xie Qingking slumped his shoulders. Gu Qingqing understood what he was getting at, but she did not respond to him. A lot of time passed, and after an hour, the purple bronze door opened. Han Sen came out alongside Little Silver. Han Sen had not become an old man, and he was as young as he had been when he first entered the hall. He had not been injured, either. Little Silver was fine, too, and he had his old silver fur that was radiant and shiny. "Did you make a wish?" Gu Qingqing spoke to Han Sen, looking real dim. Han Sen shook his head and pulled out a box. He smiled and said, "The item Sky God wanted is still in here. Even if I make a wish, he won't listen." "Why would he let you go unharmed if you didn't make one?" Xie Qingking asked with much curiosity. "I was fine the whole time. Him speeding up time was merely an illusion."
Han Sen smiled.
"It was an illusion? That means he wasn't real, and all his power was merely for show." Xie Qingking said. "He doesn't have all the powers he pretended to have, but at least his space powers were legit. Even though he is not really all-powerful, he is still at a deified level. Even if we have to fight him eventually, we cannot deal with him now." Han Sen shook his head. "Why did he not kill you and just take the feather?" Xie Qingking could not believe that things had worked out this way. Han Sen did not answer Xie Qingking, though. He just looked at Gu Qingqing and asked, "That Sun Sky God, was he the same god as the one you met?" Gu Qingqing shook her head. "I don't think so. This one gave me a completely different feeling to the one I previously met. That being said, there appears to be a thread connecting them somehow. Maybe. I can't quite put my finger on it. Maybe they are both of the same kind?" They must both have a limitation of some sort. They cannot just kill people. Han Sen did not continue with that train of questions, though. He just looked around and asked, "Captain Wood and the others have left?" As soon as the door shut, they took their leave. "Black Steel told us he would leave some of the lotus roots for us at the base," Xie King answered. "I am afraid they might not even be able to leave the palace. As far as I know, those who make wishes don't meet a fond fate. Let's go. I hope we can catch up with them." Han Sen took off power walking. "I don't understand. How did you know all that was an illusion?" Gu Qingqing asked, matching Han Sen's speed. She had no idea it was all a trick. Han Sen did not answer. He patted his shoulder, and little invisible revealed itself.
Han Sen smiled.
If that power was real, he should have aged too. The three of them sped up. They chased after Captain Wood's group for a dozen miles, before coming across a body crumpled on the floor. It looked as if the person had died a long time ago, but strangely, the clothing the body wore belonged to one of the barons that had previously accompanied them. And there wasn't just one such body. A little further on, they found more baron corpses. The manner in which they died seemed to reflect what had occurred to Wind Viscount. Their heads had been blown open, leaving a gaping hole. Weird. Didn't they have the lotus roots? Didn't they erase the markings? That should have at least lasted them a good while. Gu Qingqing frowned. It looks like the lotus root might be useless, after all. Han Sen pointed to the ground. There were some remains of the lotus on the ground, and near the shreds of lotus, there was another barren corpse. The man was holding half of a lotus root, indicating he had been eating it when he died. Halfway through his consumption of the plant, part of his head had exploded. "You are telling me that those lotus roots are actually useless?" Xie King's face changed. "Maybe they're useless, but we don't know for sure yet. These guys are dead, but you guys are alive. It doesn't look like this matter is all that simple. We need to catch up with them. I hope I am wrong, of course. If I'm not, things will have taken a swift turn for the worse." Han Sen sped up on his travel, and every now and again, they would catch sight of a baron that was dead and clutching a lotus. Little Silver suddenly came to a stop. The egg mark on his forehead turned into a black bird. Little Silver seemed upset by the change, and he kept on scratching the point. "My head feels weird too." Xie King grasped his forehead. Han Sen looked at Xie King and Gu Qingqing. The egg markings on their foreheads had turned into birds. "You guys should eat some of the lotus and stay back here. Don't follow me any further." Han Sen grabbed a lotus and passed one to Little Silver. Little Silver gobbled it up, and he was struck with that chilling sensation. Afterward, the bird on his forehead grew fainter. "You guys should take more of the lotus and stay away from here. I'll go on ahead and take a look." After that, Han Sen summoned his teeth rabbit shoes and ran forward quickly. He traveled a dozen miles in a single moment. On his way, he saw the bodies of many more barons and even one marquise. The latter was one of Captain Wood's guards. Han Sen kept going forward until he came before a palace. There, he saw something that gave him a shock. In front of that palace, the big black egg was hovering in midair. It was burning with golden fire. Below the egg, 3 marquises and Captain Wood himself were also ablaze with golden fire. They looked ready to become charcoal. Captain Wood was doing okay. His body was surrounded by blue light, and he was managing to hold off the flames. The 3 marquises, on the other hand, were truly on fire. Black steel had fallen across the stairs. The dragon-back knife was hovering over his head, as the shadow of a dragon covered him to protect him. It was holding the gold fire at bay. BZZD. Ghost teeth knife leaped out from Han Sen's backpack. Its blade pointed at the egg. It emitted a purple mist, like the egg was a grand foe. The gold flames of the egg were approaching like a meteor. Ghost teeth knife cut them in half, but the golden flames that were cut in half continued their approach. Han Sen dodged them, then grabbed Ghost teeth knife. Ghost teeth knife could only attack. It wasn't much for defense, so Han Sen could not use it to block. It was a far cry from the dragonback knife, which was currently focused on protecting black steel. "What's going on?" Han Sen asked as he evaded more fire. He was wearing his teeth rabbit shoes, so he was blisteringly quick. The fire was unable to burn him. When Captain Wood saw Han Sen, who had not died or been permanently wounded from his time in that hall, he was incredibly shocked. He couldn't dwell much on the matter, given the current circumstances, however. So, he just said, "Kill the raven blood and do not let it get free. Otherwise, we are all dead." Black Steel then yelled to Han Sen, "The egg absorbed Sky God's fire seed. The power of its fire is cruel and strong. You should run." Duke was screaming. Eventually, he proved unable to hold back the fire, and his skin began to sear and sizzle. Han Sen wasn't keen on the prospect of saving Captain Wood, but Little Silver and the others had the mark. If he didn't destroy the egg right here, they'd all end up like Captain Wood. Han Sen's teeth rabbit shoes were incredibly fast, and with a swift move, he was able to dodge 2 flames. Holding Ghost Teeth Knife, he swept forward to strike the giant egg wreathed in golden fire. Han Sen's power wasn't sufficient to activate Ghost Teeth Knife's true strength, but right now, the knife was feeling threatened. It summoned power by its own volition, power of proportions that exceeded the capabilities of a duke. It was like the egg was a living creature. It cast a number of gold flames towards Han Sen, which came down on him like rain. Han Sen's body was like a bird in the sky. He evaded a dozen fires and slashed the egg.
Young.
The purple mist and the golden flames were both extinguished, but the egg did not get damaged. Ghost Teeth Knife's full strength did not affect it. This realization made Han Sen frown. More attacks were coming at Han Sen now, too. So, Han Sen used his teeth rabbit shoes to fly. He evaded all the fire and employed his knife mind. He looked like a monster as he swooped down at the eggshell, slashing. Catcha! Some marks were left on the egg, but it had yet to crack. Han Sen was too weak, and he could only push his power to reach the capabilities of a viscount. If he had the power of a king, alongside that Ghost Teeth Knife, he could undoubtedly break the egg in 2. Han Sen kept moving his body as he tried to dodge the golden flames. He was going to hit the giant egg again. When he hit the egg this time, however, there was no noise. It was like the knife found itself suddenly sticking to the egg. But when he did this, the egg itself showed a reaction, and it bounced itself away. Han Sen was delighted by this, as he had just used Yin Yang Blast. The power he used from the Ghost Teeth Knife seemed to work. The egg backed away like it was scared, but it still carried its golden fire. It dodged Han Sen's knife, not wanting to get hit again. It was just an egg, though, and it couldn't move very fast. Han Sen, on the other hand, soared through the sky like a phoenix. Again, he slashed the giant egg. The egg jumped like a cat getting its tail stepped on. Han Sen's body was flashing in the air. When he struck the giant egg, Captain Wood was completely shocked. A speed like that and a knife mind like that? How? Is his teeth knife mind as good as the Queen's? What is this? Isn't he just a baron? Ghost Teeth Knife came against the giant egg, making it swing in the air like a tumbler. Han Sen could feel the life inside it. Ghost Teeth and Han Sen's knife mind had definitely damaged whatever creature resided inside. It had been a hearty blow to whatever was within. After the egg was injured, the gold fire it used took on the shape of a fiery bird. It chased after Han Sen wildly, but Han Sen still had his teeth rabbit shoes. He could still move much faster than that fiery bird, and it couldn't even singe him. Suddenly, though, a gold flame rose in the air like a blooming flower. The gold fire started to peel, as a handsome man revealed himself from the flickering lights. The man looked holy, like a god of some sort. Han Sen, killing the raven will not benefit you. If you let him go, I can promise you 3 things, the godlike man in the air quietly told Han Sen. Is this Sky God's true form? Captain Wood was shocked again. He didn't think Sky God could leave the Purple Bronze Hall. He hadn't expected the elusive figure to show up outside the hall, and in another form as well. Han Sen ignored the Golden Man, though. He still thrashed the egg, making it rumble and rock even more. I can erase the marks you all possess, and performing 3 services, the man that was clad in gold clothes went on to. Han Sen kept on hitting the egg, though. Eventually, there was a noise, and it prompted the egg to fall down and hit the ground. Han Sen jumped down next to it, with his Ghost Teeth Knife rampaging like a beast. It kept on hitting the egg, until a strange noise started to sound from inside it. It was like the sound of something crying. Enough. The gold-clothed man's face changed now, and he gave the command coldly. Golden fire rained down like water, covering the world. The gold-clothed man was in the air, staring down at Han Sen, asserting himself like some sort of deity. And then, he said, I broke my own rules today by letting you leave with your life. You figured out that I am just a being who uses illusions. After the voice, the gold flame turned the palace into a realm of lava. The gold fire became a monstrous entity, as dragons formed of fire stormed through the air around them. It was like the whole world was on that man's side. With that display of power, Wood Duke wanted to immediately kowtow to the gold man. Han Sen stood defiantly, though, ignoring him. He kept on slashing the egg, making the crying sound sing even louder. The egg was beginning to get webbed with cracks. The gold-clothed man was furious at this point, and the dragon and fire beasts heard his rage. They raced down towards Han Sen, igniting the atmosphere with all sorts of fire. Han Sen was like an ant before a flood. It seemed as if those monstrous fires would have no trouble in destroying him. A lot of those fiery beasts roared at Han Sen, with tongues of flame lashing the air. They almost managed to get Han Senator, but instead, they hit the ground and made the earth itself melt. Han Sen still showed no concern with them, and he kept on striking the egg. The egg made even more noise now, and even more cracks began to show across its form. Captain Wood and Black Steel were utterly gobsmacked as they witnessed all this. It was difficult to believe Han Sen was able to withstand the madness around him and continue attacking the egg. A duke like Captain Wood would have been a shivering mess on the floor if he was faced with such outstanding pressure. How do I make you stop? The godly-looking man's eyes burned with fire. His face was completely twisted. The answer he received was delivered by the ghost teeth knife, though. Han Sen was acting as if he was completely oblivious to everything except his enemy. Clutching the knife tight, he kept wailing against the egg. Eventually, the black egg could not withstand the might, and it cracked deeply. A lava-like juice began to seep from the crevice. Han Sen, if you hit this thing one more time, I will make your entire race suffer, the gold-robed man bellowed. Catcha! Again, it was only the knife and the sound of a breaking egg that answered him. The egg was suffering with even more cracks now. The purple mist of the blade came against the egg as a golden juice started to flow out like blood. I, King Jun, swear to God, I will reduce your entire race to their primitive days of sticks and stones. The entire intelligence of your race will be reduced to a level that will only allow you to eat meat, the gold-robed man spat. The entire mountain began to rock and rumble, with the noise of what sounded like thunder. Clouds formed in the sky, and they swirled as they cast a rain of blood. It was like his vow had been answered. There was a lot of thunder, like a lashing punishment from some great god. The rivers of blood that were forming, alongside the gold fires, made the mountain look like the result of an ensuing apocalypse. A bolt of lightning exploded right next to Han Senator. The fire beasts roared into his ears, but even so, Han Sen showed no care or concern. Without a single moment of hesitation, his grip on his knife remained firm. Slash after slash, Ghost Teeth Knife struck the egg like mad. The egg was covered in marks, and the flow of the lava-like blood increased. It was all over the place, along with the purple mist. It was pretty creepy. Xie Qing King, Gu Qingqing, and Little Silver had the mark on their heads. Little Angel back at base might have had it too. And that godlike figure that called himself King Jun did not seem like the trustworthy sort. All the creatures that had made a wish with him had met a grisly end. The only way to erase the mark now, Han Sen figured, was to destroy the raven egg. There wasn't any other way. Han Sen knew that King Jun God was limited by some sort of power, and that was why the powerful being could not fight him directly. Still, Han Sen believed that what he was doing now would yield the best results. The dragon-shaped thunder exploded next to Han Sen. The rain of blood soaked Han Sen. The fiery beasts and King Jun's roars were like curses being chanted from the pits of hell. But despite all that, nothing could stop Han Sen's ghost teeth knife. Catcha! An unknown number of slashes later, the egg cracked open, shattering into pieces. The lava-like juices cascaded out, flooding its proximity. Inside the broken egg, there was a featherless raven. A deep wound crossed its body, oozing purple smoke. The raven's eyes were partly open, but little more than slits. It looked furious, but it appeared to be suffering inside the lava-like juice. And while it seemed to be unable to stand, it lurched forward with the speed of lightning. Quickly, it came toward Han Sen, seeking to bite him with a mouth wreathed in fire. Ghost Teeth Knife looked so angry in return, with its purple mist. Han Sen did not have to activate it himself, as the blade moved for him. It was like a hungry demon, and it wanted nothing more than to kill. The raven had not fully developed yet. There were no feathers on its body, and it was grievously injured. There was blood caking most of its skin. The knife came at the raven and cut it, leaving a lesion across its flesh. The full power of a king-class ghost teeth knife only left a scratch across it, though. Han Sen kept moving, swinging his blade at the raven as he went. It was still small, and its eyes were only partially open. Its body was still naked, and its skin wasn't as firm and developed as it could be. But even so, the raven was not afraid of the assault. After the attack, it looked at Han Sen with even anger. King Jun had not said anything. He coldly looked at Han Sen with an expression of pure hatred and murder. It was scary to witness. Eventually, the blood rain, thunder, and fire began to fade. The palace had been reduced to little more than a ruin. Han Sen slashed the bird again, delivering more and more wounds upon it. Gold blood spilled out of it, and it was clear Han Sen would soon end up killing the raven. Han Sen, if you kill it, you will never be rid of me. King Jun sounded calm when he spoke, so calm it was chilling. Catcha. Without hesitation, Ghost Teeth Knife delivered a clean cut across the raven's neck. The head was lopped right off. King Jun did not say anything. He merely looked at Han Senator, then he disappeared. But the look he had given Han Sen was remarkable. Deified creature hunted, baby sun raven. Sun raven beast soul obtained. Deified gene obtained. When Han Sen heard the announcement, he was thrilled with delight. When the sun raven was killed, the marks on the foreheads of the others began to disappear, too. They became gold, and then melted into their flesh with the rippling mirage of a fire. Gu Qingqing sat down on the ground and used her qigong to absorb the flame. Xie Qingqing's body, meanwhile, was glowing with silver light. Little Silver's eyes flickered with lightning. The barons at the base used their skills to absorb the mark, but the women and children were unable to. The gold blended into their skin and changed their bodies instead. Boom! The mountain continued to shake. It came from the purple bronze hall. It seemed to have erupted, and the palace came flying at them through the air.
Han Sen.
I will be back. Soon. Soon. King Jun's voice echoed through the underbelly of the mountain until the palace disappeared. Captain Wood wanted to get up, but he had been badly burned. His flesh and even his bones had been charred. It didn't seem likely that he'd live. Sir, take my body back to Planet Green, if it is of no trouble for you. That is where I was born, and if I am buried there, I know it will make for a fine resting place, Wood said. Wood, you raised me up. You have helped me a lot. Without you, I would have been killed by those gold fires. I cannot let you die, Black Steel said as he tried to pick up Captain Wood. Han Sen, I am going to take him home to heal. I am going now. But Han Sen stopped him and said, with the condition he is in, he won't even reach the base. He won't reach another planet. There is nothing else I can do. I have to do this, Black Steel said. Han Sen thought for a moment, and then said, wait, there is a better chance of him surviving right here. Young master, it is fine. I know what will happen to me. I will be happy enough if you can take my lifeless body to Planet Green. Wood was surprisingly calm. Black Steel asked Han Sen, what are you suggesting? His body was burned by fire, and his body is suffering from fire poisoning. That is bad. He can't make it to camp. But these lotuses have a cold element within them. If they can suppress the raven mark, it will help the fire and perhaps eliminate the fire poisoning, Han Sen said. The lotuses might be able to clear the fire poisoning, but the wounds... Black Steel shook his head. That's why we'll need him, Han Sen said, then whistled to the sky. Not long after, something silver emerged from the ruins. Little Silver swiftly came before Han Sen. Little Silver, bite the lotus and put it on his wounds. Han Sen gave Little Silver the lotus. Little Silver took the plant and chewed it up. Then, he moved over and spat it out over Wood's wounds. The burned skin began to smoke, and it made Wood scream in agony. Little Silver chewed up a lot of the lotuses and placed them atop all the wounds. And whenever the wounds came into contact with the lotuses, it was like a ladle of water being poured over smoldering charcoal. The white lotuses turned black. Black Steel, feed him some lotus, Han Sen told Black Steel. Black Steel crushed up some of the lotuses and fed Captain Wood. He already seemed a little better after eating what he had been given. His wounds were still really bad, though. It would be difficult for him to be healed, but the mere fact that he was alive was enough for now. He would survive long enough for his body to recuperate. Thank you. Captain Wood gave Han Sen a complicated look. Don't thank me. This is because of Black Steel. Otherwise, I wouldn't care whether you lived or died, Han Sen said coldly. No matter what the reason is, you saved me. And that means I owe you. Captain Wood shook his head. Han Sen did not say anything in response. He really didn't like Wood, and the less he had to do with him, the better. Xie Qingqing and Gu Qingqing soon appeared there. The marks on their foreheads had indeed disappeared. Black Steel picked up Captain Wood, and Han Sen lifted the Sun Raven's body. The entire carcass of the bird emanated a strange power. It was not a xenogenic, either. Han Sen was keen to research what the thing really was. When they emerged from the mountain, it didn't seem as if anything had been affected by the events that occurred inside. The landscape was the same as it was before they entered. Back in the base, Black Steel took Captain Wood to an airship where he could heal and recover. The people in the base had lost their marks. Han Sen asked Little Angel and Zero what things were like after he left, and he was surprised to learn that a mark had appeared on every single person in the base other than Little Angel and Zero. With the crisis having come to an end, the day-to-day routine of the base returned to normal. It had been a rough period of time, though, and the base had been dealt quite a blow. There were only a dozen barons remaining, and one viscount. They would need more manpower for the future, that much was certain. Han Sen did not have the time to recruit right now, though, and at the moment, he was more concerned about how he might cook up and eat the small sun raven. He tried cooking and grilling the bird, but the meat was like steel. It certainly wasn't edible in its current condition. Han Sen took the sun raven back to the sanctuary and nothing happened. It was still not edible, so he decided to put it into storage for the moment. This is Bauer's first day in kindergarten. We have to go and accompany her, Ji Yanran said to Han Sen. Sure. Ah, my cutie pie is going to kindergarten.
Han Sen picked up Bauer.
Bauer had grown up a lot, and she looked like an average 3-year-old now. Dad, I want to stay with you. I don't want to go to school.
Bauer låg trubbelt.
It will be hard for you to join me where I am right now. It's not a good place. When things get better, though, I will bring you with me. But for now, you should go to school, Han Sen said, encouraging Bauer. They moved to be closer to the school. Little Flower had been kidnapped by Old Cat, so Ji Yanran was focusing her maternal efforts on Bauer instead. After the formalities were conducted, Bauer was left to her own devices in the kindergarten. Han Sen and Ji Yanran did not go straight home, and instead, they walked around for a while.
Han Sen, I miss Little Flower.
Ji Yanran's voice was quiet. Me too. All of this is because of that blasted Old Cat. But don't worry, Little Flower is fine there. Old Cat sent me some videos, remember? Han Sen tried comforting her. Once in a while, they'd receive a new video of Little Flower. It must have been Old Cat who was sending them, but he never showed up himself. Knowing Little Flower is fine is okay and all, but I miss having him right next to me. It's like there's something missing in me when he's not here. Ji Yanran was still sad. I will bring Little Flower home and skin that Old Cat as soon as I am able to. Han Sen gritted his teeth as he spoke. Han Sen changed his tone and said, how about we make a Little Flower? When Little Flower comes back, he'll have a sibling. How about we make a few, so this place is more crowded? I don't want that many. I am not a breeding pig. Ji Yanran looked very angry. Where did I find such a beautiful pig? Han Sen laughed and picked her up. What are you doing? We're out in public.
Janran growlet.
You are my wife. I can hug you. Can I? I don't care what others think of us. In the kindergarten, Bauer was sitting on a small chair. She held her jaw, looking miserable and bored. Bauer, why aren't you playing with your classmates? Are you sick? A woman teacher crouched down next to her and stroked her head as she spoke. I don't like those games. They are boring.
Bauer blinkt.
How about I teach you how to sing? The teacher asked. What song? Bauer asked the teacher. The teacher clapped her hands and acted all cute. She said, follow along with what I sing. I picked up a coin on the road. Teacher, how old are you? Bauer asked, looking at her. 24. What about it? The teacher looked at Bauer strangely, unsure why she had been asked that question. You are so old, and yet you act cute and sing stupid songs. Poor you.
Bauer seid.
The teacher's face twitched as she was taken aback. She held back the urge to smack Bauer on the head and simply said, I am still young. Ha ha. 24 is very old. Women like you are prone to say they are 2 years younger than they actually are, too. So, you are at least 25. Perhaps almost 30. I suppose you still don't even have a boyfriend yet. That is so sad. You don't have a boyfriend at that age, and you have to act all cute in the kindergarten. When you're off work, I bet you go shopping to buy pointless things and make yourself feel better about yourself. Bauer looked straight at her and went on to say, but on top of that, your wages are probably low. I am afraid you can only buy knockoff products. If you went to a decent brand store, you could probably only afford the cheapest items and ask for the biggest box and bag to carry it around on the streets, trying to prove to others that you exist. This D***MN kid. The teacher's face went dark, and her face twitched repeatedly. She forced a smile. It is not like that. The saddest thing was that Bauer was correct, and it made her feel extremely sad. Teacher, I think you are very good at gambling, Bauer said. No, gambling is bad. Why would I do that? Ha ha. The teacher's face twitched, and her smile was terribly forced. Your appearance is fair enough, but I bet at home, all you do is smoke and play mahjong. I bet the place is a dirty pigsty, too. Clothes scattered everywhere, with dirty plates molding in the sink for days. Bauer kept on talking. This D***MN kid.
D***MN kid.
The teacher felt as if she was about to go insane with rage. Bauer's eyes glanced at the woman, her eyes as thin and conniving as a con artist's. Before the teacher ran off, Bauer opened a bag and pulled out a box. Teacher, do you know what this is? Bauer shook the box. This is the legendary lipstick, number 29 from Planet Doris. How could you have it? The female teacher's eyes widened as she looked at it in amazement. You cannot afford it, but you can tell whether it is real or fake, right?
The
teacher caught it and looked at it as if it was $1 million antique. It's real. The teacher opened it with shiny eyes. Teacher, how about we gamble? If you lose, give me $10. If I lose, I give you this lipstick. Bauer pulled out a pair of dice and smiled. I can't. The teacher receded into thought. Never mind then. I don't like this lipstick, and it is a waste. Now I have to keep on holding it. Bauer sighed and motioned for the teacher to give it back. Hang on. The teacher picked Bauer up and carried her swiftly to a storage room. She looked around like a burglar, then closed the door. 1 hour later, the storage room was filled with the sound of crying. A voice was heard, saying, Leave me those $10, please, or at least leave me enough for a meal. I need it for the next 2 weeks. Han Sen held an orb that was around the same size as a man's fist. It shone like a miniature sun. If you looked at it closely, you could see there was something gold swimming inside it. Deified Beast Soul, Sun Raven, Gem Type. As he fiddled with the orb, he considered it. Han Sen had obtained a few Gem-type beast souls in the past. Not many of them existed, as they were quite rare. But they could be used to bring other beast souls up to the same level as the Gem Beast Soul. This was a deified Gem-type beast soul, and that meant all Han Sen would have to do was find another beast soul of a compatible element. If he did, he could bring it up to a deified class. Han Sen had a few different beast souls, but nothing like a firebird beast soul. That meant he could not use the deified gem-type beast soul at this point in time. Han Sen returned it to his Sea of Soul, and then he looked at the ledger for the base. The base's shortage of manpower kept them from producing much, but something very nice did happen soon after the crisis was averted. A young woman with ordinary Geno armor had a second evolution. She became a Baron. Gu Qingqing guessed it might have had something to do with the Gold Raven mark. Perhaps the energy that melted into their bodies was what prompted the second evolution. The Geno armament she received was a fire type. If the Gold Raven mark can make people evolve, does that mean all these women and kids could end up becoming xenogeneics or nobles? As Han Sen mulled that thought over, he realized he was quite happy about it. Any nobles he developed could become Han Sen's loyal army, and he could be more confident about using them. Of course, it still depended on when they could all become nobles. Only Black Steel and Captain Wood knew of the events that occurred in the Raven Palace. It had been many days since then, and yet word had not gotten out. The news had been suppressed by all survivors, it seemed. It did not matter much, anyway, even if word was to get out. There were fewer nobles in the base right now, at least, and that made things easier for him to manage. This also provided Han Sen with more time to practice and hunt xenogeneics. Even so, he was still unable to level up and become a Viscount. Han Sen, how are your skills coming along? When Isha finished practicing, she finally called up Han Sen. Things are going swimmingly, Han Sen answered. Isha, upon hearing Han Sen say that, smiled. Icebird was behind her, but she hadn't said a word. Because Isha had told her to review Han Sen's current situation, she knew he had lost many barons and viscounts. He always hunted alone, and he didn't focus on his practice. Good. The Moon God Festival is coming. All the elites and their heirs will be going. You should think about joining us. There'll be a test, Isha said coldly. Moon God Festival? Han Sen looked at Isha with a modicum of confusion. Isha signaled for Icebird to step forward and explain. The Moon God Festival happens every 49 years. Only the rebate who are born within those 49 years are able to join. Because there are many outsiders within the rebate society, especially over the past few centuries, they are also allowed to join. That is, if they are able to qualify. Icebird explained it to Han Sen, so he'd know a bit more about it. It wasn't random that it happened every 49 years. Every 49 years, on the main 11 planets, a moon altar would appear. Creatures that were born within those 49 years could enter the altar to Moon Palace. The Moon Palace was in the center of Narrow Moon, but it was different from the Gold Raven Hall. There was no sun. There were just the planets and Moon God Palace. It was usually cold and hidden in the dark. Not even deified elites could sneak in. During this time, the planet would appear, and the Moon God Palace would open up. Anyone who could make it past the altar and reach the palace would be blessed by the Moon God. This was a big thing for the rebate, and the event would even be live-streamed. The first person to be blessed would receive a big reward from the rebate. No one knew what the reward would be, though. It was something that was decided by the Elder, and the Elder hadn't announced what the reward was going to be yet. But Han Sen was more interested in the blessing than the physical reward. The Moon God might have been present, but there were no statues or creatures around the palace. The creatures that entered Moon God Palace looked awfully cold. The blessing was to be bathed in moonlight, it was said, and no actual god showed itself. There was no advantage to going to Moon God Palace early. Once the palace opened, you could be blessed at any point until the palace closed again. The amount of blessing you'd receive was random and didn't depend on timing either. Sometimes, the last person to go would receive the most blessings. Sometimes the earlier arrivals would receive the greatest blessing. There didn't appear to be a reliable rule for how the blessings were distributed. After many Moon God festivals, it was deduced that the strength of the blessing depended on the person. Normally, the actual rebate received the strongest blessings. Outsiders rarely ever had a chance to join in, and there was a fairly obvious bias. Isha let Han Sen go, but Han Sen didn't think he'd receive much of a blessing. She just wanted him to witness the new elites that showed up every 49 years. In the festival, showing off your power was far more important than earning first place. Aside from receiving a bonus from the elders, you'd receive nothing special. Most rebate and xenogeneics just wanted to use the festival to gain fame. Han Sen was Queen's only student, and he would definitely be challenged. That was why she mentioned there would be a test for him. 49 years was not a short amount of time, and there were a few viscounts that had joined. An earl had taken part, as well. Ordinarily, they wouldn't kill anyone. But even so, Han Sen was a baron, and it was difficult to say if he'd pull through. After they ended the call, Iceberg said, "What if too many people realize that you are letting him join? You taking him as a student has soured many of the younger ones. I am afraid they will try to teach him a lesson. It is good for the young ones to suffer failure." Isha smiled. Han Sen had nothing to prepare, so he went back to hunting xenogeneics as he usually did. He also spent time practicing his Geno arts. When the Moon God Festival began, Han Sen was sent to Planet Blade. It was one of the 11 primary planets, and Moon God Altar could be accessed from there. There weren't many creatures on Planet Blade, and across the past 49 years, only 7 to 8 could join. As the planet moved, a previously invisible planet appeared directly in the center of Narrow Moon. You didn't need a live stream to see it. All you would have to do was look up and see the planet that hosted the giant palace. It was like a heaven in the cosmos. But that beautiful jade palace looked completely different than the planet that hosted it. The planet itself was barren, devoid of mountains and rivers. The empty side of the planet was facing them, too. The palace was located on the opposite side of the sphere. The altar teleported you to the other side of the planet, so you'd end up facing the jade palace. You had to walk around it to get inside. The moon god altar appeared on Planet Blade, and so Han Sen teleported. He wasn't interested in fighting people, as all he wanted to do was take first place and obtain the rewards he might be entitled to as a result. When Han Sen appeared on the planet, there were many people standing atop a jade platform. Han Sen started running. That planet wasn't very big, and it was just a small moon, but running to the other side would still take a long while. Han Sen, don't run. Han Sen had only just started running when someone called out to him. It was a black-eared rebate. He was 2 meters tall, and he was holding a big knife as he ran towards Han Sen. Han Sen did not remember seeing this guy before, and so he didn't think it was likely that the man would have a grudge against him. Why was he coming for Han Sen? After the black-eared man shouted, everyone looked over to see what was happening. "Why are you calling out to me?" Han Sen asked, as he kept on running. The black-eared man again shouted, "Don't run. I am Night Giant God. Let's fight and see which of us has superior knife skills." Upon hearing what was said, Han Sen simply sped up. He ignored the man completely. The guy was just a baron, so there was no point in fighting. He thought the concept was ridiculous, and the last thing Han Sen wanted to do was take part in something ridiculous in front of everyone.
Han Sen.
"Are you really willing to call yourself Queen's student? Take a stand and fight me, if you have the audacity." Night Giant God kept shouting as he chased after Han Sen. Fortunately, Night Giant God was a fighter who focused on power. He had no chance of catching up with Han Sen. Still, he kept on running and shouting, which made Han Sen depressed. It made Han Sen wonder, is he crazy? The young ones that came to the planet were headed in the same direction as Han Sen and Night Giant God. It created a scene of Han Sen and Night Giant God in front, with many people behind them. Moon God festival goers usually pick their own path. This was the first time they were all following 2 people so closely. Are these guys hostile to me? When did I offend them? Han Sen looked back at the commotion, and he saw so many people giving pursuit that it looked like a riptide. He was flabbergasted by what he saw. Most people had just come to watch. They didn't plan on fighting Han Senator, they wanted to see how Knife Queen's student performed. Knife Queen is such a high and superior person. Why would she accept a student such as that? He only runs away. Yes. What is he so afraid of? I thought he had a king-class weapon. Why is he so scared? Fight, fight. The creatures that were all watching the streams shouted at their monitors. But they were only watching the live stream, so their voices would not reach the planet. The nobles who witnessed the scene wanted to laugh. Iceberg Duke didn't look fondly on the event, either. She thought Han Sen's decision to run was an embarrassment to Isha. Isha was impartial to the whole thing, though. She merely watched the video. Night Giant God is unable to catch up. Let's help him. A Viscount smiled to his friend. Let's go and stop him so they can fight. A few Viscounts nodded. They had gone there to watch the show, and bullying Han Sen had not been their original plan. But now that he was not willing to fight, despite the challenge, they weren't very happy about it. So, they wanted to stop Han Sen and force him to compete in a battle. A dozen Viscounts sped up, went past the main group, and came in close to Han Sen. Old Nine, do you think Han Sen can actually fight Night Giant God? A beautiful man with gold bunny ears was amidst a group. He was moving casually, leading others that were behind him. A man with a cow head, who was standing right next to him, said, I do not know, but Night Giant God is incredibly strong. And he's practiced Night River King skills, too. That is called Fighting River, and it is strong enough to be on par with the Viscount's power. Its strength is that of 500 flowers, so that is a very rare number. So, you support Night Giant God? The gold bunny-eared man smiled. I guess, said the man with the cow head. How about this? Only you and I are Earls. I will be number 1, so there's no point in fighting. How about a wager, then? You bet Night Giant God will win, and I bet on Han Sen winning. If Han Sen loses, then I will gladly give you the first position, the handsome man said. What if I lose? The cow-headed man calmly asked. If you lose, come and train with me on Planet Thunder, the beautiful man said. Okay. The man with a cow head nodded. Han Sen was in front, and there, he saw a dozen people coming after him. He felt depressed, and so he thought, no way. Is Knife Queen really that unpopular? All these Viscounts now want to bully her student? This is so not fair. Fortunately, Han Sen was prepared. He had the teeth rabbit shoes. He wasn't going at full speed, but now that the Viscounts were nearing, he sped up a bit. Han Sen decided to get the number 1 spot, so he could get the reward first. Hey, what happened? His speed is increasing. A dozen Viscounts were trying to stop Han Sen, and they had all managed to get very close to him. But now, at that range, they were finding it getting more and more difficult to close the gap. He can run even faster than this? Not bad for a Baron, I suppose. But it is naive to think this will be enough to shake off a Viscount. A Viscount smiled as he accelerated. The dozen Viscounts moved as if they were activating jetpacks. Together, they sped up towards Han Sen. The distance separating the Barons and Viscounts cannot be closed. The fitness is too much to compensate for. It would be shocking enough for the fastest Baron to have a speed in the 500 flower range, but even so, the slowest of Viscounts are above 1,000 flowers. Skills won't be enough to close that gap. The beautiful man smiled. The next second, though, the beautiful man was shocked. When the Viscount started to speed up, Han Sen was able to speed up yet again. He managed to maintain the distance between himself and the others. How is it possible for a Baron to run so quickly? Is he really just a Baron? Since when did Queen excel in the teaching of skills that benefit those wishing to flee a fight? This speed is so King fast. Not even Viscounts are able to catch up with him. Still, I wonder how long he can keep that up. This is interesting. The races that watched the Narrow Moon livestream were showing extreme interest. They were no longer complaining that the events were boring. The beautiful man was shocked, and he said, I cannot believe a Baron can possess such speed. It must be some secret technique he has learned. The man with a cow head did not speak. He just kept running. This is strange. How is he able to run so fast? The Viscount behind gritted his teeth. He couldn't get dose to Han Sen. I told you guys it would be beneficial to learn a speed geno art. You guys said the abilities of flight were useless. Now watch me. A rebate Viscount that had practiced speed went at an even faster pace. The wind at his back left trails like a blitzing jetpack. His legs looked like a fiery wheel as he left his own group behind to catch up with Han Sen. Wind assault can only be used in a straight line. It cannot be used in the midst of a fight, but this is perfect for it. Han Sen surely can't outrun this. The beautiful man smiled. The Viscount that had practiced wind assault was only 10 meters behind Han Sen now. Those watching the live stream were excited that he had almost caught up with Han Sen, then shocked to see Han Sen increase his speed yet again. The Viscount that was using wind assault was only 10 meters away from Han Sen, and he couldn't get any closer. What is this? Can he not catch up? The people watching the stream dropped their glasses. They did not expect this could happen. A Baron can possess this sort of speed? That is very powerful. This is so fake. A Viscount with wind assault cannot catch up with a Baron? There's a problem somewhere here. There is. Normal Viscounts cannot dodge wind assault, so how can a Baron outrun it? I will say it has something to do with his shoes. They must be some sort of treasure that imbues incredible speed upon its wearer. It must be. But even so, he is just a Baron. Even with a high-tier treasure, he shouldn't be able to unlock its true power, right? Normally, a Baron cannot activate a superior treasure. The strength he would be given would be that of an ordinary Viscount, at best. But this is way too much. If so, I haven't the faintest clue where it might have come from. Everyone was talking about this ravenously. The Moon God Festival had actually become an interesting affair. He is cheating. It is no wonder he has managed to achieve this level of speed. But it is useless to cheat before the absolute speed. The beautiful man felt embarrassed for the presumptuous mistake he had made. He sped up with the desire to stop Han Sen. The cowhead fellow followed after him. Those two earls shot past the teams and even accelerated to a speed that surpassed the Viscount with wind assault. They were going straight for Han Sen. *T. How many people has Queen managed to offend? Even the earls are mad at me. Han Sen thought Queen had offended a lot of people, and that was why others kept coming after him. But actually, although she did not have many friends, she was an idol for all of the rebate. She was a popular person when it came to socializing. Han Sen wasn't overly concerned, though. He increased his speed, wanting first place more than anything. The rewards wouldn't be bad, and Han Sen figured he'd be needing it. That was why he was trying to claim it. The elders said the reward was a Marquise Xenogeneic armor set. That armor set would be incredibly powerful if it was activated. But even if it wasn't, it would still provide a great boon of defense for any wearer. And on top of that, if he later had no use for the gear, he could just eat it for Xenogeneic points. That prize would be valuable no matter how he decided to use it. The beautiful man thought he could catch up with Han Sen easily, but after speeding up, Han Sen went even faster. There was nothing he could do to catch up.
**.
The beautiful man sped up again. As his speed increased yet again, so too did Han Sen's. But the Earl was still unable to close the gap and get close enough to Han Sen. Cheating boy, I am going to get you. The beautiful man gritted his teeth and shone with a bright green light. A green light dragon enveloped his body and came whooshing forward towards Han Sen. Han Sen increased his speed again, though, and he managed to lose the green light dragon. He was headed straight for Moon Palace. Everyone who was watching the stream had seen the green light dragon pursuing Han Sen, but Han Sen was still able to increase his speed and leave it in the dust. The beautiful man was shocked. He could not believe what was happening, so he gave up on the prospect of chasing Han Sen. People stared at the live stream in dumbfounded silence for a moment. An earl had used all his strength and still failed to catch a baron.
**.
What are those shoes? They are overpowered. Someone complimented them. Icebird Duke was shocked by what she was witnessing, and even Isha was transfixed by the shoes. If the shoes were a king-class treasure, a baron should not have been able to activate them. But adding to that, the shoes themselves didn't exactly seem to look like one, either. All the nobles were in shock, staring at the rabbit shoes Han Sen was wearing. Han Sen was so fast, he arrived at the Moon Palace before everyone else. He went inside the gate and saw some strange moonlight from beyond. The moons were rising in the hall. I wonder how many moons he can raise in there. The people who watched the stream glanced away from their monitors and looked up to narrow moon. The moons that were rising could be seen just outside. There was no use in watching the live stream now, because the moonlight was like a curtain that obscured everything that lay beyond. Han Sen stood inside the palace. He could feel the moonlight going into his skin. His bones and cells felt alive, as if they were being thoroughly cleansed by blessed water. Weird. The power of that moonlight. As Han Sen wondered about all this, his jade skin started running. The beams of moonlight drifted toward Han Sen and landed on him, as if he were their exact target. Ah, they are the same element. That is why I felt that it was similar to jade skin. Han Sen was very happy about this. When the moonlight came through him, his jade skin developed even faster. When the jade skin had become Xenogeneic, it looked as if it had gone as far as it could possibly go. But now that he had the benefit of the moonlight, it felt like it was going even further. This made Han Sen incredibly happy. When Han Sen absorbed that moonlight, the light wasn't reduced. In fact, the luminosity only increased. Within the moonlight, Han Sen was also able to see some sort of text that stood out brighter than the rest of the moon's light. When Han Sen read it, he noticed that it was a Geno art, but it did not have a title. So, Han Sen kept reading it until he realized that it was something quite similar to Jade Skin. It had not been created by the same entity, but the thought process behind it was surprisingly similar. That Geno art inside the moonlight was more suitable for the Geno universe. Jade Skin was tuned for the sanctuaries it originated from. After all, it was impossible to tell which of the two was flat out better, and that was because the environment was different. I am so lucky. I was thinking about how I could modify Jade Skin, and now I have this. Although I cannot copy it directly, it will be perfect if I can find a way to integrate it with Jade Skin for now. Han Sen was so happy, and he did his best to memorize the content of the text he could see above. There was more and more moonlight entering him, and it almost started to feel like water. It was like a liquid, thickly flowing into Han Sen. Han Sen's body was like jade now. He stood within the glow of the moonlight like an ice statue, letting the moonlight penetrate him. His delicate bones were cleansed by the moonlight, making him as squeaky clean as any statue. More and more moonlight bathed his body, until his xenogeneic genes started to evolve. Am I going to become a Viscount now? Han Sen was super happy with the prospect of this. Although it was the xenogeneic gene of Jade Skin that was evolving, it was still good enough for him. Recently, Han Sen had been wondering about how he might make himself a Viscount, and now it seemed that Jade Skin would be the trigger. Han Sen cast Jade Skin to absorb as much of the light as was possible. He had to make sure that his body received as much as it could. His other body parts were bathed in the moonlight, but what benefited him most was the xenogeneic body. His jade-looking body began to glow with a halo. It was a sign that he would soon become a Viscount. After becoming a Viscount, Han Sen could unleash his xenogeneic powers through smoke, fire, and light. Jade Skin's power could very well be a light element one. Outside of the Moon Palace, moons were rising. Every time a moon rose, the Moon Palace would become brighter. I wonder how many moons he will be able to raise? Isha was looking at the palace with a fond smile. She did not expect that Han Sen would be able to raise many, as he was essentially just there to practice. He was only a baron, and he only had knife powers. She didn't expect he'd manage to do too well. With the moon god power, it was very good for an outsider to be able to raise 12 moons. The most a rebate had ever raised was 36. Han Sen was not a rebate, so Isha would be happy to see him raise 10 moons. You can fight to get a higher rank, but not more moons. 12 moons should be the max an outsider can achieve. Over the past few hundred years, only 4 or 5 outsiders have ever been able to raise 12. The best managed to raise 24, Icebird Duke said. The nobles and civilians were watching the moon rise keenly. They kept counting, each time a new one rose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The moons kept rising, and there were now 10 of them above the palace. People were shocked. He managed to get 10 moons. Han Sen is lucky, Night River King commented calmly. He was currently playing chess with Black Moon King. Black Moon King smiled and said, I think he can do more than that. You think he can raise 12? Night River King said, after moving one of his pieces. More than that, even. Black Moon King's smile did not go anywhere. Night River King was shocked by the assumption, and so he asked Black Moon King, You think he can manage to raise more than 12 moons? I suppose, Black Moon King said. In the past few hundred years, only 5 outsiders have managed to raise 12. And there are tens of thousands of competitors this year, Night River King said. Knife Queen selected the boy as her student. She had a reason for making that choice. It wouldn't be all that surprising, Black Moon King said. How about we make a wager? If Han Sen can exceed 12 moons, I will give you my dragon steel. If he is unable to, you give me the steel knife. Black Steel managed to get that dragon-back knife, so you don't need the steel knife. Night River King smiled. Okay. Black Moon King simply agreed, and then put a black chess piece down on the table. 11 moons had managed to rise. The next would be the 12th. To many of the rebate, that would be the max he was expected to achieve. 12 moons?
Han Sen is lucky.
Being blessed by moon gods, 12 moons will have made him stronger. Moon. Will King was sipping on a cup of tea as he spoke. Isha smiled. She was satisfied that Han Sen had been able to raise a 12th moon. 12 moons? Han Sen is not bad. Of course. Otherwise, Knife Queen would not have taken him as a student. Would you say it is possible for him to achieve more than 12 moons? I am afraid that might be too difficult. Over the course of a few hundred years, only 4 or 5 outsiders have been able to achieve 12 moons. The chances of him getting more are too low. As everyone rapidly discussed this, another moon rose up into the sky. 13 moons? He broke through the expected threshold. Interesting. Queen really did find herself a special student. Han Sen must be something special. He sure has a bevy of good luck. Night River King was in shock. He didn't expect that Han Sen could bring up 12 moons. Night River King had lost the dragon steel he had offered in the wager, but he did not mind. He said, I didn't expect Han Sen to be this lucky. I will have the dragon steel delivered to planet Black Moon later. Black Moon King smiled and responded by saying, Night River, would you like to make another wager? What else can we bet on? Night River King was shocked by the offer. To see whether or not he can raise 24 moons, Black Moon King said. Black Moon, it sounds to me as if you really admire the boy. Do you honestly believe he is that talented? Black River King looked at Black Moon King with much surprise. Yes, I do, Black Moon responded. Okay, in that case, I will conduct this wager again, and I still want to compete for that steel knife of yours. What would you like? Night River King said quickly. Black Moon King slowly said, a magic steel. Night River King frowned, but he nodded.
Fine.
Since you have dragon steel, it is pointless to hold on to magic steel. Assuming you win, you can take the magic steel if Han Sen is able to raise 24 moons. Okay, then. Black Moon King's lips were smiling. The moons kept on rising, and before long, there were 18 of them hanging in the sky. Wow, there is now 18 of them. He must be all tapped out by now. Whoa, it is still continuing. He's at 19. Interesting. Can this guy really raise 24 moons? Isha was in a good mood, right now. It had been difficult getting him to evolve twice. But after that, she had been satisfied with every result following her expenditure. She was starting to think she had really lucked out by taking him on. But thinking about how to get him to Viscount, Earl, Marquise, and then Duke was something that was giving Isha a bit of a headache. The story of Jean's modifications had not gone well. If Han Sen practiced it, it had cost a lot of resources each and every time. Getting him to the level of a baron had already been very hard, so she couldn't even comprehend how much it might cost her if she brought him all the way up to Duke. Iceberg Duke was surprised Han Sen had been so lucky. He had 18 moons now. The tally of moons kept rising without slowing down. Eventually, Han Sen had reached the prestigious number of 24. I lost. Night River King frowned. Han Sen's performance had surprised him a great deal. But this was just the beginning. After the number 24, another moon appeared in the skies above Moon Palace.
Des astérisques émènent.
Another moon? 25? He broke the outsider record. Is he insane? Queen really is sharp. He must be the luckiest outsider ever. Still rising. 26. Oh my god. Might he be a rebate just pretending to be an outsider? This is insane. This number is the average of A. Rebate. Many of the rebate can't even reach this far. It looks like the moon god really fancies him. *T. 27. Surely he cannot reach. 36. After all the moons that had risen, Narrow Moon was losing its stability. Many people stood up and stared at the Moon Palace. Oh my god. 30. Many nobles, like Night River King, Black Moon King, and Isha, were all shocked. No one had guessed that it was even possible for Han Sen to raise so many moons. The moon god's blessing wasn't normally very too powerful or beneficial, but when you reached that sort of number, the reinforcements turned into something special. Another moon came up, and then Narrow Moon went quiet. It was the 36th. That was the highest any rebate had ever been blessed with. He really did raise 36 moons. He is totally a fake outsider. Many of the rebate had wry smiles. They felt extremely jealous. 36 moons was a very rare number amongst the rebate. He is lucky. Moon King took a sip of tea and then let out a lengthy sigh. The next second, he almost choked on the tea in his mouth. Above the palace, another moon came up. The whole of Narrow Moon was quiet. The dukes and everyone there had their mouths open, and yet no one spoke.
Impossible.
Night River King suddenly stood up. He stared at the Moon Palace's 37th moon. Isha was shocked as well. 36 plus 1 moon was something no rebate had ever seen before, across a million years. Everyone thought 36 was the highest he could achieve, but what they had just witnessed told them that it wasn't. Icebird Duke wore a complex expression on her face. Her mouth was open wide, and she looked to be in disbelief. This is madness. Moon Palace now had 37 moons overhead. Someone couldn't help but scream. All the nobles felt very conflicted, especially those of the rebate. They were so proud of this festival, but now their pride in it was waning. The person who had been able to raise the most moons in the festival's history was no longer a rebate. And that was just the start of the insanity. All the nobles were shocked, confused, and also suspicious. Another moon arose in the sky. 72 moons were out in the sky. It was an incredibly pretty sight. The whole of Narrow Moon was silent. The elites like Isha and Moon King were completely speechless. They had watched each moon rise. The rebate had only ever managed to reach 36 moons, but that prestigious number had not just been beaten, it had been doubled. No one had seen this before. After that, though, no more moons rose. It brought the nobles a modicum of relief. If it kept going, they were going to doubt everything they had thought true in their lives. Boom! Just as everyone thought Han Sen's blessings had come to an end, the 72 moons atop Moon Palace shone with exuberant brilliance. Basking in the glow of 72 casts of moonlight, Moon God Palace was luminous. The cells in Han Sen's body rapidly began to change as a result. Bzzd. His bones screamed. The moonlight came out of Han Sen's body, like a robe to completely wrap him up. He was like a moon king. Geno body Jade Skin has ascended to Viscount class. The same time this occurred, another noise shot through Han Sen's mind. It gave him a shock. He had received a body that was Viscount class. He could now cast energy on the outside. When Jade Skin reached Viscount status, the moonlight across the palace was finally reduced. His body began to go back to normal. Quickly, the moonlight around Moon God Palace began to evaporate until there was nothing left. Han Sen was left standing in the hall, looking up at the 72 moons. Suddenly, they started to shine again like suns. Boom! The 72 moons began shining back down into the hall, with a focus on one spot in particular. Due to the moonlight being focused, people could now see into the hall. Everyone saw Han Sen standing inside, and the 72 beams of moonlight weren't coming down on him, but on a spot that was about 3 steps ahead. The moonlight looked tangible and solid, and inside those concentrated beams stood a woman. Looking a little closer, however, it was apparent that she was only a shadow. She did not look real. The lady looked at Han Sen and pointed with her slender finger. She pointed it at Han Sen's forehead, then began moving her lips. No noise came from her mouth, but a voice sounded in the heads of all. By the name of Moon God, I bless you. It does not matter which race you hail from, for you are the son of the moon. You will be guided and protected by the power of the moon. The moonlight on her finger went straight between Han Sen's eyebrows. It spread out across his head, then cleansed the entirety of his body. After that, the pretty woman smiled at him. Her body faded away, and the moons became dim and disappeared. Everyone in Narrow Moon had their mouths open. Only one thought ran through their minds. That was a genuine Moon God blessing. The ones before weren't anything like that, and Moon God never revealed herself. They weren't blessings then. This is the proper Moon God blessing. He has qualified to earn the title of Son of the Moon. Why him? After all these years, we rebate never once received a proper Moon God blessing like this. And now, it's an outsider who got one. I wonder what the effects of a true Moon God blessing are. He earned the title Son of the Moon, and she told him he was protected by the moon. Even so, he should still walk out as a low rank. Who knows? We will have to ask Han Sen ourselves. He is the only one who has ever received such a blessing. I don't think Moonwell King and Isha know what this stuff is about either. Isha looked at Han Sen strangely as she walked out of the palace. Aside from a troublesome Geno art, her student was practically perfect. But that Geno art would be harmful, and even Isha herself did not think it was possible to bring it up to King class. If he succeeds, this King class Geno art will be the scariest ever. Isha glanced around nervously. Han Sen's performance made her want to train him well, but the thought of the resources required to bring him up still gnawed at her. Especially if she was to bring him up to King class. She didn't think it was something she could realistically afford. Iceberg Duke looked as if she had a conflicted mind. She did not understand why Han Sen was so special. He had been taken in by Queen and found a King-class weapon. He had now just received the true blessing of Moon God. It looked like everything good in the world happened to him and him alone. He was far too lucky. Was he a virgin in 10 previous lives to receive so much luck now? Iceberg Duke wondered. Night River King and Black Moon King were in shock as well. They were both thinking, Queen's student got a King-class weapon and the Moon God's blessing. He also has those weirdly brilliant shoes. Did he save the entire universe in his past life? This guy's luck is scary. He is overpowered. Nah, it's nothing. He's just lucky. If I had his luck, I'd be even more overpowered. The nobles and commoners spoke about these matters a lot. While many were jovial about it, many expressed only jealousy. Han Sen didn't think much about it, but eventually, he walked out of the palace. He wanted to teleport back to Planet Blade. He wanted to research the Geno art in the moonlight. But outside the palace, many people had gathered. They were all looking at Han Sen, and unless he chose to fly above them, his way was completely blocked. Excuse me. Han Sen blinked, and the young ones that had joined the festival woke up from their daze. Han Sen, fight me. You cannot run now. Night Giant God was holding a knife that was as big as a door. He was pointing it at Han Sen. The other young ones surrounded Han Sen, refusing to let him run off this time. They wanted to witness the performance of the first person to ever receive the Moon God blessing. Fight! Fight! The people who were watching the live stream were all chanting. They wanted to see a fight too. But of course, no matter how loudly they shouted, Han Sen wouldn't hear it. Han Sen did not plan on escaping this time. He had already achieved first place here, so there was little to worry about. Now it was time for him to show off the knife skills that Isha had taught him. Isha had been teaching him teeth knife for a while, and by now, that was what he was best at. Now he needed to perform what he had learned well in order to avoid disappointing her. If he made her happy, it was only expectable that he would receive more resources from her. So, this next move would be more important than anything. He gripped his ghost teeth knife as he ran towards Night Giant God. He was holding the hilt, but the weapon was still inside its sheath. He hadn't drawn it. Good timing. Night Giant God shouted as he swung his own knife with greater strength. His Geno art was called Battle River. It was a water Geno art. Water Geno arts were usually quite soft, and they had a sense of infinity about them. They were usually quite effective against something hard. But Battle River was different. It was a really rough water Geno art that was like a river coming down from the sky. It was the strongest strike, and that was just the beginning. Backed by the knife skills of the rebate, his attack would be so fast and so strong. No one at the same level would be able to block him. Han Sen did not plan on escaping. He slashed with Ghost Teeth Knife, and he used teeth knife skills to perform the technique Tooth for a Tooth. This was different from Tusk. This move changed depending on the opponent. If the foe was cruel, then it'd be cruder than them. If the foe was hard, then it would be harder than them. If the foe was obscene, it would be obscener than them. Night Giant God was striking very hard, and so Han Sen did the same thing. There was no way around this. They are going for a direct collision with each other. Night Giant God was born powerful. He has 500 flowers despite being a baron. Very few people can fight him. Although he does not have a king-class weapon, I don't think it matters all that much. Han Sen himself can't cast the king-class power of his weapon. After all, someone who knew Night Giant God said,
Young.
Ghost Teeth Knife and Night Giant God's Knife came against each other. The thin and curved Ghost Teeth Knife, coming against the large knife of the opposition, did not look appropriately scaled. But the purple blade of Ghost Teeth cleaved right into the big knife. It shattered the big knife, sending fragments flying everywhere. Ghost Teeth Knife did not stop. It kept coming forward towards Night Giant God. When it was less than 1 inch away from his head, just about brushing his hair, the knife stopped dead. Night Giant God's eyes were opened wide, and sweat broke out across his brow. He did not dare to move at all.
Han Sen smiled.
He put the knife away and walked right past Night Giant God. You only won because you have a king-class weapon. I will fight you. Another Baron appeared. He moved like a ghost and tried to attack Han Sen's neck with a dagger. But within a second, his dagger was also broken. A few other Barons came at Han Sen at the same time, prompting him to move. But wherever Ghost Teeth Knife went, a broken weapon would follow in its wake. No one's weapon could withstand the strike of that knife. Powerful, that teeth knife skill is, the beautiful man said in compliment. The man with the head of a cow replied, he is a powerful man. Han Sen kept on swinging his blade fearlessly. If any Baron came close, he'd break their weapon. He was not killing anyone, though. He'd simply break their knives and that was it. If he did start killing, the entirety of Narrow Moon would likely consider him an enemy. The Barons could not stop Han Sen's advance. And before long, it was a Viscount that tried him next. The sword of the Viscount came at him like a shadow. The swordlight became a flash of light that weaved a net of strikes to attack Han Sen all at once. This was a rebate skill known as Moon Shadow Slash. Han Sen kept on moving, not slowing down as he came towards the sword net. He used a teeth slash towards the Viscount. The Viscount was shocked by the boldness, because Han Sen was now moving toward where Moon Shadow Slash actually began. The net was just an illusion, and it wasn't where the actual sword was going to strike. It was too late for him to withdraw his sword, too. So, the Viscount committed to the slash, as the swordlight came down on Han Sen's Ghost Teeth Knife. Catcha! A large chunk was carved out of the Viscount's sword. This wasn't because the Ghost Teeth Knife was sharp and hard. Dog Teeth was based on the concept of a heavy strike. Many rebate used this skill, as it was infamous for destroying popular swords. Many king-class weapons were missing chunks due to this technique. And seeing that the Viscount was unable to block Han Sen, many other Viscounts swept forward to stop him. They were afraid he'd run off again. But this time, Han Sen was not planning to run. He had achieved first place already, and now was the time to show off. The better he performed, the more resources Isha might be willing to give him. This was his best chance of securing valuables. He had Isha's backup, anyway. He wasn't afraid anyone could actually do something to him. Han Sen used his knife to fight many nobles, all alone. The Barons had stopped, so it was mostly just the Viscounts that were fighting him now. Han Sen did not use his Viscount Jade Skin, though. He maintained his Baron class for the fight. He didn't use his Teeth Rabbit Shoes, either. He was only using his Ghost Teeth Knife to fight back against the Viscounts. It looks like Knife Queen recruited him a long time ago. How long she's been training him, God only knows. But it would take a decade for him to reach this sort of level. Night River King hummed. Isha was shocked, too. She knew exactly how long she had been teaching him. Han Sen had only been with her for a few months. She had not taught him for long, at all. The last skill he learned was 8 days ago. It was shocking that Han Sen could use Teeth Knife with that level of proficiency. Is he a knife master? Isha had a complicated look. Han Sen's performance kept on surprising her. As a teacher, she was very lucky to have such a student. She had only taken him on in a bet to find out where dollar might be, but she felt like having him as a student was not a negative thing at all. Should I expect more from him? Isha wondered. But whenever she did, the thought of the story of Jeans would return and give her a headache. He is good at Teeth Knife, yes, but he is not one of the rebate. It is difficult for him to use teeth power. Even though he is good at it, it is still a waste. Moonwell King felt ashamed. Seeing that the Viscounts could not block Han Sen, and no one could strike, it seemed likely Han Sen would be able to escape. The beautiful man then decided to teleport in front of Han Senator. His bone knife was forged from dragon bones. He slashed towards Han Sen. Bulsh *T. Why did he join the fight? An earl fighting a baron? What is this? An old man that was of a higher rank saw the beautiful man step into the fight. This displeased him a lot. When most average people saw this, however, they did not mind. In fact, they were quite excited to see the beautiful man fight.
Geoyes Atekin.
His dragon sun knife skill is a dragon moan, and not even viscounts can withstand something like that. Han Sen will surely suffer now. Haha. It'll be good to squash this outsider's reputation. If this hadn't occurred, this entire Moon God's festival would have been his show. Knife Queen is so powerful. She selected a very powerful student. It may be difficult, being a baron, but his luck and talents are very good. Of course, it sounds like you guys thought she only picked him because he's good-looking. It's true that he doesn't look bad. He is suitable to earn respect amongst the beauty of the rebate, but when compared with us, he is only average. There are many more handsome rebate men that far exceed him. It is fine if he loses to Gaoji. He has done well. The nobles and the commoners were talking. Isha, Moonwheel King, and Night River King were in absolute shock. Gaoji's dragon moan was shocking. It was capable of freezing viscounts on the spot. But Han Sen had proven resilient to it, and he was not affected. Han Sen still gripped his knife, and just as the copper knife was about to hit him, he drew out his ghost teeth knife. Seeing ghost teeth knife about to slice open Gaoji's neck, the observers still had to remember that earls were earls. Their speed and reaction times were too fast to comprehend. A green dragon of light swiftly appeared to swallow Gaoji's body.
Young.
Ghost teeth knife hit the green dragon's shadow. Han Sen tried his hardest, but he was unable to break the shadow of that dragon. Han Sen did not put his knife away, though. He still used his knife to release a purple mist, right next to the green shadow.
Geoi frowned.
He had used his green shadow dragon's power to shake Han Sen away from him. The moonlight of Narrow Moon was like water. The moonlight shone on Han Sen, bathing him in its glow. He was getting stronger, and Gaoji couldn't do anything to get away from him. Ghost Teeth Knife was still mauling the green dragon shadow. Within that moonlight, Han Sen's strength continued to rise. Still, he hadn't accumulated the strength necessary to overcome his opponent. The moonlight buff was strong, though, and Gaoji continued to use his green dragon shadow, though he still wasn't succeeding in shaking Han Sen loose.
De asteriskenen.
A moonlight buff. Is that a blessing of the moon god? It must be. Did you not hear the moon god say that Han Sen is the son of the moon? Wherever there is a moon, he will earn a buff by it. That is way too strong. It has buffed a baron enough to compete against an earl. This is too incredible to believe. Maybe, but it obviously isn't fake. This is Narrow Moon, and there is an abundance of moons. The buffs Han Sen can receive here are very strong. Anyone of the same tier who tries to fight him here must have a death wish. Does that mean Narrow Moon has become Han Sen's territory? Yes. Otherwise, he would not have been given the title Son of the Moon. Gao Ji looked glum, unable to shake Han Sen away. So, he decided to go on the offensive and slash towards his opponent. His knife carried a green dragon light and a dragon bone. Han Sen did not think his title would bear such significance. The moonlight power there was far too strong, so much so that it allowed him to do battle with an earl. Han Sen did not retreat. He used tooth for a tooth and struck towards the green dragon light. Ghost Teeth Knife came against the fully powered green dragon knife, and still, it managed to block the green dragon knife. They stopped right there, with both knives repeatedly colliding with each other. Catcha! A crack appeared on the green dragon knife, which then began to expand and spread across the shadow of the green dragon. It made the green dragon shadow start to look like a shattered mirror.
Young.
Ghost Teeth Knife and the green copper knife came against each other again. Gaoji had to withdraw his green copper knife and reluctantly fall back. His powers were less than the moonlight buff given to Han Sen. Gaoji looked cold. He swung his knife with a desire to fight, but his face changed when he saw his own blade. Ghost Teeth Knife had dealt a crack to the green copper knife, and soon after, the crack started to spread, until the green copper knife was wrought with an entire web of cracks. Isha stood up from her seat. With wide eyes, she intently observed the cracks that were rapidly manifesting across the green copper knife. Isha, Moonwheel King, and Night River King, who knew about teeth powers, suddenly felt their faces grow pale. They couldn't believe what they were witnessing. No way! Night River King looked to be in shock, and he could do nothing but stare at the green copper knife. Catcha! Gao Ji swung his knife again, but when he put the green dragon light into the green copper knife, there was a sound. And then, the green copper knife shattered into pieces. It was reduced into nothing but bits, surrounded by a horrible purple mist. Teeth power. Everyone had those two words form in their mind. But even still, it was hard to believe that it was true. That was the rebate's strongest geno art. It was the strongest skill the entire race of the rebate possessed. Not many could practice that, not even amongst the rebate. But now, an outsider had just used teeth power to defeat a rebate earl in battle. The rebate could not believe this was happening. Everyone knew Knife Queen was good with teeth knife, and everyone knew Han Sen was her only student. Everyone knew Han Sen practiced teeth knife. But no one thought, or even dreamed, Han Sen could successfully use teeth powers. In the hearts of the rebate, learning teeth power would place you amongst the most talented of the whole race. Now, the glory and pride had been crushed by Han's senator that strike had made all the rebate shocked. They could not even think straight. It is no wonder that Knife Queen took him as a student. It wasn't just for fun. Night River King looked dim. An outsider can use teeth power, and that person is Knife Queen's student. Is he good or bad for Narrow Moon? Moonwheel King was in shock too. Isha was the one who was shocked the most, though. Her mind had yet to return to her. How could he have practiced teeth power? The Moon God Festival had become boring. The young ones went to the Moon God Palace to accept their blessings, but they were only able to raise up to the 36 moons, individually. This was supposed to be a number of extreme pride, but now it seemed rather pathetic. Once they had seen the true Moon God blessing, their own Moon God blessing seemed almost fake. This wasn't because they were neither good nor lucky. That had nothing to do with it. But without the Moon God appearing, no matter how lucky or strong you were, you did not possess the true blessing. Han Sen's jade skin had its origins in the Frost Sutra. It had a connection to the Moon God, which was why he received the blessings he did. It didn't actually have anything to do with Han Sen's luck or strength. Before long, the Moon God Festival came to an end. Han Sen, receiving the Marquis's armor he had come for, was overwhelmed with sheer delight. The festival had now finished, but Han Sen's performance had swiftly become a hot topic. Everyone knew about what had transpired. Inside the meeting hall in the full moon offices, a few of the elderly and the kings of Narrow Moon had assembled. Frowning and looking upset, Isha said, "Why can't we give Han Sen a spot in the Moon Garden? Is he not talented enough? Or is my student simply not qualified?" The elders did not speak. Neither did they dare look directly at Isha. Night River King said, "It is not because we do not want to. It's simply because the rebate's law only permits the acceptance of a rebate. I don't recall the Moon Garden ever having such a rule. Didn't they once accept an outsider, back in the era long ago?" Isha said emotionlessly. After that, the faces of the elders and elites all changed. Moonwheel King groaned and said, "Queen, you know what happened to the last outsider, don't you? If he is not of the same race, he is different. It does not matter how talented or lucky he is. The fact remains that he will never be a rebate." "Yes. Haven't you heard the story of the mother rebate raising a baby wolf, only to be killed by her child once it had grown up?" Night River King said, "Queen, you should really understand what we are telling you. If your student was one of the rebate, we'd give you as many slots as you are able to take." "Exactly. You should take another student if you do not approve. We'll give your next a slot, for sure." The elders and the elites tried convincing each other not to give Han Sen a spot in the Moon Garden. Isha frowned. She was Knife Queen, yes, but she was not a dictator that could orchestrate every working of their society. Without the approval of the elders, she would be unable to provide a spot for Han Sen in the Moon Garden. Moon Garden was a training organization that belonged to the rebate. Everyone who got in had the possibility of becoming a deified elite, or at least a champion. Of course, they hadn't produced any deified elites in a while, but there were many general elites. Even Knife Queen herself had gone through the training offered there. Out of all the kings present, only Moonwheel King that had secured such prestige without having first spent time in Moon Garden. Entering Moon Garden meant you'd be able to enjoy all the resources available to the rebate. Making Han Sen a duke would be difficult, but it was fortunate that with Isha's support, it wouldn't be too problematic. It was simply a shame that Han Sen was not one of the rebate. She had tried to secure him a spot in Moon Garden, but no matter how she pleaded, his acceptance would not be approved. Han Sen returned to Planet Blade. He waited for half a day for Isha to finally arrive and meet with him. Isha had just returned from Full Moon office, and meeting with him now was her next order of business. Queen, did you enjoy my performance? Han Sen bowed. Isha sighed at Han Sen and said, Han Sen, your performance puts me in a difficult situation. Why? Did I perform poorly? Han Sen asked.
No.
In fact, it was too good. Let me ask you, how did you get the teeth power?
Isha asked Han Sen.
It is because I practiced it. Teeth power is similar to the powers of Ghost Teeth Knife. I used Ghost Teeth Knife to practice every day, and somehow, through that, I happened to learn it. Han Sen stayed very calm when she asked about this. No one would be able to find out the truth, so he exerted confidence in his answers. Isha didn't look suspicious, either. She knew such things might be impossible to explain. Anyway, how is your practice with the story of genes coming along? Isha asked him. It's going rather slowly, Han Sen answered. This was true. When Han Sen leveled up his The Story of Genes, it had indeed gone very slow. He did not know how long it might take to make him a Viscount with that. Isha pulled out a bottle and gave it to Han Sr. This bottle contains xenogeneic materials gathered from Viscount-class xenogeneics. It is a genofluid, and it should be good in leveling you up and bringing you up to the class of Viscount. Eat 10 grams of this every 10 days. And when you do, immediately cast The Story of Genes. Once you have finished, come along and get some more. Thank you very much. Han Sen was so happy, and he thought to himself, my performance really was good. Look at this, I've received some goodies already. Now, you get going. You've still got to develop Planet Eclipse, in addition to all the training you have before you. Isha waved and let Han Sen go. The genofluid, if it was used by a Baron, it could make him a Viscount. It could possibly make 2 Viscounts. But when used on Han Sen, Isha knew it probably wouldn't be as effective. Instead, it would only help him inch his way closer to the threshold. It wouldn't be enough for him to level up completely. We will see how he behaves, Isha thought to herself in her heart. Back on Planet Eclipse, Han Sen was not in a rush to drink that genofluid. In fact, he was keen to research the geno art he had learned while inside Moon God Palace first and foremost. Jadeskin was a geno art from the sanctuaries. This was something that quite similar. It was like the Geno universe counterpart of Jadeskin. They did not have a connection, but with Han Sen's prior knowledge of Jadeskin, it should make practice of that Geno art fairly easy. Han Sen did not plan on practicing it, though. He still wanted to focus on Jadeskin. He just wanted to absorb the essence of the other and assimilate it with Jadeskin, while he continued on with his original art. Now that Han Sen could unleash power, he had to be able to gather up spirit successfully. If he did that, he could evolve his xenogeneic bones and become an Earl. Like Earl Gao-ji, that man's spirit had been a green dragon. Judging from the way that Geno art was practiced, it must have had a special technique that allowed for the gathering of spirit. Absorbing light element treasures would allow for easier gatherings of spirit. The moon itself did not glow. It borrowed the power of the sun to glow. The moon that provided the Geno art was the same. Its light was used to light up one's spirit, and it worked very well. But it was hard to find light treasure. For now at least, Han Sen did not know of a location in which he could find something like that. According to the Moon God Geno art, the different light treasures he absorbed would affect the sort of spirit he summoned. It would affect its element and even its shape. I wonder if I can find a good treasure here on Planet Eclipse? If I'm unable to, I'll have to head back out there in search of one, Han Sen thought. But for now, Han Sen was planning on scouring the reaches of Planet Eclipse for one. He had skills, teeth rabbit shoes, and Marquise armor to stay alive. He should have no problem doing battle with the Duke in such a condition. Han Sen took out 10 grams of the Geno fluid he had been given by Isha, and then he swallowed it. Then, He felt an energy begin to flow and spread throughout his body. It took around 5 hours for it to be fully absorbed. The spells he had definitely felt improved, so it was clear to him that Isha was not skimping, and she was giving him some good stuff. He felt the energy spread out across all of his body, and he made sure to use the story of genes during the absorption process. Han Sen did not feel any negative side effects to the consumption of it, but he didn't use any more. He was going to follow Isha's commands and take the small dosage of the stuff every 10 days. Much good news came from the base those days, too. The ordinary women were starting to become barons, and by now, there were 4 of them. The gold raven mark works. It is a shame the kids are just too young. They haven't been able to generate Geno armor yet. If they all became barons, I'd have a mighty workforce, Han Sen thought to himself. Still, he went ahead to establish a school to better educate the women and kids. He also had a school to teach them about combat and Geno arts. Inside a cave on Black Moon Planet, a fire flared upwards like a water spring. A rebate with black ears was naked and drenched in sweat. His muscles shone in the glow of the fire.
Young.
The big man was swinging a black steel hammer. When it struck the red-hot steel, a flurry of sparks erupted. Slowly, the hot steel was taking on the shape of a knife. The big man ran water along it eventually, then examined it closely. He looked disappointed, and then he threw it away. The knife ended up on a mountain of other knives. He spoke to himself, saying, "No, this material cannot be used to make a knife blank. It is too poor." After that, the man picked up another hunk of ore and threw it into the fire. It was more material for forging. When the man failed again, the ground split in 2. Flames rose from the earth, and the place was becoming so hot, even the rocks started to melt. The big man frowned and looked into the fire. He had been there for a long time, but he had never seen the fire behave that way. Just as he started to step closer and see what had happened, the fire took on the shape of a fire spirit. "What are you?" The big man frowned. "Black Cliff, do you wish to forge a real knife?" The fire spirit used a decidedly vague voice. "Of course. Otherwise, why would I have waited here for over a decade?" Black Cliff said simply, "If you make a wish to me, I can help you forge the strongest knife in existence." The fire spirit's voice still sounded so vague. "That's all right. I will use my own hands to forge the strongest knife." Black Cliff rejected the offer and looked confident in himself. "But you lack the proper materials. If you make a wish, I can find you the best or that there is," the fire spirit continued. "You can help me find materials?" Black Cliff looked at the fire spirit intently. "Yes, of course. I am a god who knows everything. It is easy to locate what you need. If you ask, I will help," the fire spirit said arrogantly. "Why are you helping me?" Black Cliff frowned. "Because you yourself want to be considered a god. So, make the strongest knife and become a god. Your desire for this has touched me," the flame spirit said. Black Cliff did not believe the entity, but he really wanted the materials. He wanted them more than anything. So, he looked at the spirit and said, "Okay, if you find me the materials, I will pay you back." "You do not have to pay me back. Your loyalty is my best reward." The fire spirit looked incredibly happy. The fire spirit looked happy, and then the fire erupted again into a giant wall of flame. Black Cliff's eyes were on fire, too. "Go to Planet Eclipse and find Han Senator. He has precisely what you need. It is a knife blank that you want." The flames of the fiery spirit looked angry. "Planet Eclipse? Han Sen? Knife blank?" Black Cliff's eyes burned. Although the fire on the ground was gone, the fire in his eyes remained. It was half a month after the festival now, and Han Sen was pretty much done with the moon god Geno art. His jade skin had become Viscount, and it had been successfully modified. So, it should have been fine for Han Sen to practice with now. The other parts still needed to be fixed, but he hadn't reached there yet. He couldn't just jump over to fix it. "Old Han, what are you doing?" Xie King pushed open the doors. "Practicing a Geno art." "You!" Han Sen raised his head and drifted off as he stared at Xie King. "Ha, I have become a Viscount. Cool, huh?" Xie King looked cocky. "That is very nice." Han Sen gave him a thumbs up. Although he had provided Xie Qingqing many xenogeneic genes to make leveling up a little easier, it still felt like it was too fast. He became a Viscount because of the Gold Raven power. Without that power, there's no way he could have leveled up that quickly, Gu Qingqing spoke as she approached. When Han Sen saw her, he realized she had become a Viscount, too. They didn't hide this fact, so it was easy to learn. Not bad. The Gold Raven mark was pretty good, but it was just a one-time thing, and it is gone now. Xie Qingqing licked his lips. Well, what lucky timing for you guys to become Viscounts. I am planning on hunting up in the mountains. Would you like to go? Han Sen asked with a smile. Deep in the mountains on planet Eclipse, Han Sen, Xie Qingqing, Gu Qingqing, and Little Silver were traveling. After Xie Qingqing and Gu Qingqing became Viscounts, Little Silver became one, too. Now Han Sen was depressed. Little Angel, 0, and he had not been infected. If they had, it was likely they could have leveled up to Viscount with much greater ease. They wouldn't have needed to practice half as much. The environment is stable for now, at least. Why don't we bring more people to this universe, so we can grow and cultivate them? It will be impossible for us to become famous here with only a handful of people. Han Sen was deep in thought. Han Sen could recruit many from the Alliance, but there were a few he did not feel safe with. One such person was Wang Yuhang. Han Sen was afraid that if he came here, the man would bring terrible luck down on him. Because Han Sen had provided many xenogeneic genes to his friends and followers, certain people in the sanctuaries had developed very quickly. But he had made sure to only provide such things to those who were close to him. Han Sen's resources were limited, and he couldn't fill the needs of everybody he knew. With the help of xenogeneic genes, though, many humans and creatures from the Fourth God's Sanctuary had made it to the Alliance. That included Dragon Lady, Death Goddess, Red Pony, and Little Star. They had successfully ascended to the Alliance universe. The humans who had successfully ascended included Queen, Lin Feng, Wang Yuhang, Tang Zhenliu, and Yi Dongmu. They were waiting to go to the xenogeneic universe now. Ji Yinran and Luolan had eaten so many xenogeneic genes that they too had ascended to the Alliance. But Han Sen wasn't yet willing to let them cross the divide. He was afraid that if they were there, they'd cause a big problem for him with their attempts to find Little Flower. The advantage of creatures from the sanctuaries was that they could level up rather quickly by consuming xenogeneic genes. Their biggest letdown, however, was the fact that their genes were unstable. There was no telling what a creature might eventually become. A xenogeneic that looked like a leopard came prowling out of the mountains. Gu Qingqing, with her sword air, killed it in a single strike. Gu Qingqing's powers were of sword air and not sword light. Her green sword air was weird, and it resembled something like silk. She could kill enemies at all manners of strange angles. Save me some. Xie Qingqing blurted, clutching his silver book. You are too slow, Gu Qingqing said, as she was in the process of cutting up the xenogeneic body and harvesting the xenogeneic genes. Xie Qingqing did not say a word, and he merely closed his silver book. Han Sen looked at Xie Qingqing. Xie Qingqing's geno-armament and power had been consistently surprising to Han Sen, and they had interested him quite a bit. After Xie Qingqing leveled up to become a Viscount, he had been able to use his silver light to draw pictures on the pages of his book. Whatever he drew could come to life, right out of the parchment. He could practically summon beasts to fight alongside him. But the shadows he drew did have limitations. For one thing, he couldn't pre-draw a creature, then cast it when the time for battle came. So, he had to draw his desired summons during battle, and that took time. With Gu Qingqing there, though, he couldn't draw anything fast enough to fight. By the time he finished drawing something, she'd have killed the xenogeneic already. It was something that didn't make him very happy. Han Sen was happy, though. He wasn't interested in Baron or Viscount xenogeneics. He wanted to find light treasure. What is this? Xie Qingqing looked up to the mountain, confusion etched across his face. Han Sen followed Xie Qingqing's gaze, and they examined a red mist hanging across the mountain. But the mist hadn't come from the sky. It arose from the mountain itself, and it looked rather weird. Perhaps we should go and take a look. There could be treasure.
Han Senes ejes hone breitly.
Careful. We are only Viscounts, remember? If we encounter a duke or a marquise, Only Han Sen has a Duke Beast Soul pair of shoes that he can use to run. We lack such things, Gu Qingqing said. Do I look like the type to run off and abandon you? Han Sen was hurt by the comments. Yes. Xie Qingqing and Gu Qingqing answered sincerely. Han Sen shrugged his shoulders and picked up Little Silver. Carefully, he snuck towards the place he had seen. The red mist was like a cloud, but it rippled like a living fire. It was a stunning sight. After the three of them got close, they found that the red mist was rising from a valley. The valley, filled up with that mist, looked like heaven. What might have lurked beyond the strange vapor, however, was something they could not see. Should we go in and take a look? Gu Qingqing looked down into the valley and frowned. She could not see anything. The red mist was too thick for their eyesight to penetrate. It didn't actually hurt their eyes, but it did stop them from looking at what was inside. I don't know what lies inside. I'd wager it is too dangerous to go in, though. Even with teeth rabbit shoes, Han Sen did not want to take the risk. He was still too weak, and carelessness could cost him his life. Now you can watch me. Xie Qingqing spoke with absolute confidence. He summoned his silver book and began casting with his wonderful silver light. He was scribbling something rather quickly. Within a second, the shadow of a silver leopard leaped out from the pages of the book. It looked exactly like the one Gu Qingqing had just killed. This one was just a silver shadow, though. It wasn't comprised of actual flesh. You can draw anything you like with this book? Han Sen asked with surprise. Yes, but they only stay around temporarily for now. I can only draw creatures that exist in the universe, too. The drawing has to be pretty accurate to generate the creature, as well. After Xie Qingqing said that, he commanded that the leopard head into the valley. If you draw a king-class xenogeniac, would it have king-class power? Han Sen asked. Of course not. The shadow's power depends on the caster's strength, mine. That being said, some of the creatures I have drawn can carry their own element. Still, the power scales back in comparison to me, Xie Qingqing explained. Whoa, that is already so very good. Han Sen looked at Xie Qingqing strangely. Xie Qingqing was a man with a very bad temper. It was strange to see him take to drawing in a fight instead of immediately using his fists. Roar. The leopard had been inside the mist for a while when an awful screech was heard. Then, nothing. The valley returned to silence. Xie Qingqing's face changed. The leopard drawing in the book was shattered. What happened? Han Sen asked Xie Qingqing. I don't know, but I have a connection with the shadow. I can feel what they feel, but I cannot see through their eyes. After he entered the mist, something killed him quickly, Xie Qingqing said. Han Sen and Gu Qingqing frowned. The shadow Xie Qingqing had drawn had possessed the power of a viscount. It had been destroyed within 1 second. So whatever lurked inside the valley was scary. There is no need to rush. Watch this. Xie Qingqing flipped open his book and drew something else with his fingertips. Not long after, another leopard came leaping out of the pages. It didn't run straight into the valley, and instead came to heel and crouch near Xie Qingqing. Xie Qingqing kept wagging his finger across the book, and after a few minutes, another 4 leopards joined the first. When done, he said, Okay, this is the maximum I can do. He commanded the 5 leopards to enter the mist of the valley, all in a horizontal line. Each leopard ran forward at the same time, all together, but they kept a few yards of space between them. When they entered the valley, there was a movement from within the fog. But then, all too quickly, the valley echoed with the sounds of squealing again. The red mist of the valley rumbled and swirled. As the pictures on Xie Qingqing's book began to disappear, one after another. Within a mere few seconds, the pictures of all the leopards had been erased. It likely indicated that the shadows that had been spawned and sent into the mist had been destroyed. Xie Qingqing's face turned pale. The death of the leopards meant nothing to him, but he had exerted a lot of his own energy by summoning so many. That had cost him a lot. So, did you find out what's going on inside the valley? Han Sen asked Xie Qingqing, looking right at him. Xie Qingqing told him, I don't know what's going on. I didn't see anything, but when the leopards were killed, 1 second elapsed between each death. So I assume the leopards were all killed by a single entity. I can also guess that if a creature can kill my shadow so quickly, the creature must have 4 times our potential speed. It could be an earl or higher, but with a hidden power. If it is an earl, that's nothing to sweat about. I have the teeth rabbit shoes, remember? The speed of those is no worse than an earl, and I also have the new Marquis xenogeneic armor. I may not be able to activate its full potential, but it can most certainly protect me from the attacks of an earl. Han Sen looked up to the sky and noticed another magnetic storm that was raging. He could not see the moons of Narrow Moon from where he was, so it was unlikely he'd be gifted their strength. Wait here. Gu Qingqing stopped Han Sen, who was on the verge of entering himself. She pulled out Pure, and a green aura danced across the blade. Then, the sword came alive in a swirl and flew forward into the valley.
Young.
Pure flew right into the mist, and shortly after, a crunchy noise sounded. Then, Pure flew back out and right back into Gu Qingqing's hands. My sword was attacked once, Gu Qingqing said, then sheathed the weapon. Okay, I'll go and take a look. Han Sen donned his Marquis armor and put on his rabbit shoes. He clutched Ghost Teeth knife in one hand and held his knife blank firmly in the other. Then, with much care, he started to step inside. It was times like this that Han Sen actually started to miss Wang Yuhang. If the man was there with him, all Han Sen would only have to get Wang Yuhang to stand outside the valley and shout. He would probably draw whatever was inside out, and there'd be no need to go inside. Han Sen carefully walked into the mist. While the mist had color, he didn't feel anything when it brushed across him. After a few steps, that changed. All of a sudden, he felt horrid. He wanted to go forward, but he was struck in the back. It was a powerful strike, and he staggered forward. Before Han Sen was able to stabilize himself, something else came at him again. It got his arm. The creature in the red mist traveled quietly, and actually catching sight of it seemed impossible. Han Sen was very fast, but he didn't know where he should move until the attacks had already happened. By the time the strikes came, it was too late to dodge. By the time he moved, he'd already been hit. Luckily, though, Han Sen had the Marquis armor on. It meant the attacks didn't actually hurt him. Han Sen ran out of the valley after getting hit again, but the thing inside the mist did not follow. He took a look at what had happened and noticed the scratch marks across his suit. Surprisingly, they weren't very deep. What is it? Xie Qingqing and Gu Qingqing ran up to him to ask. Old Qing is right. There is an earl creature there. Its speed and power aren't too shabby, and it uses the red mist for cover. It's practically invisible. I got attacked before I even saw it, every time. I was hit a few times, but even then, I wasn't able to catch a glimpse. The red mist might have the added ability of masking the senses, because I wasn't even able to hear its movements, Han Sen said. This is bad news. If it's in there and it won't come out, then we can't fight it. Entering the mist is pointless, even with the armor that you're wearing. Gu Qingqing frowned. It'd be great if there was some way to draw him out, Xie Qingqing said. If he dared to come out, he'd have followed either my sword or Han Sr. Gu Qingqing shook her head. It shouldn't be too hard to draw him out, but we'll need the help of a specialist, Han Sen said. Wang Yuhang. Xie Qingqing and Gu Qingqing had thought about him, too. There is something awfully strange about this valley. There are creatures guarding this place for a reason. I am afraid that something important might be about to happen here. We can't delay this, Gu Qingqing said. I gave Wang Yuhang some xenogeneic genes, and after he ate them, he managed to break through. He was able to absorb life geno-essences, and after he maxed out, he went to the Alliance. We should be able to bring him here fairly easily. But the people out there know how many people Planet Eclipse currently holds, and the documents are all in files. If someone else shows up, it might be difficult to explain. I have to use the recruitment excuse to bring him here, Han Sen said. Then let's go quickly and bring more people over. Planet Eclipse has a lot of resources, so the more people the better. With the small amount of us here, there's not enough to pay the taxes we must pay in a few years, Gu Qingqing said. This is what we can do then. You guys can stay and hunt in the vicinity, just don't go too deep. And also, keep an eye on the valley. I'll be right back, Han Sen said that, then returned to base. After returning, Han Sen gave Knife Queen a call. Knife Queen knew he'd need more people, so she agreed to his request and sent him an airship. After Icebird Duke picked him up, they left Narrow Moon to recruit. Where would you like to recruit people this time? Iceberg Duke was sounding much friendlier with Han Sen now. Han Sen had been #1 in the Moon God Festival, and he was the very first person to have ever been personally blessed by the Moon God. So, that had certainly boosted his reputation and goodwill. Learning teeth knife and teeth powers in such a short time wasn't something that could be accomplished with luck alone. However he had done it, it made Iceberg Duke look at him differently.